of Southampton Planning Board. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with Chapter 1 of the laws of 2022, all board meetings will be held remotely via video conference. So we ask the public to continually check the town's website for updates and new information. We have a full agenda posted on the town's website for today's meeting. The town's planning staff, as well as applicants and their representatives, will be participating via Zoom webinar, which is being moderated by CTV. Charles Certain will be muting and holding speakers in a virtual waiting room until it's their time to give testimony before the board. A reminder that applicants and their guests should state their name and address for the record. As is typical, there are no public comments allowed during our daytime meetings, nor is it appropriate for the public to use the chat function to comment on applications. The link to participate in this meeting via Zoom can be found on the town's website. This meeting is also being live streamed on the town's website on the town clerk's meeting portal. If you're having difficulty accessing the meeting, please visit the town clerk's meeting portal and click on the instructions link. Board members who must recuse themselves from any application will state so on the record and will be removed from the meeting until the end of the discussion and vote on the application. Finally, in accordance with the legislation, this meeting will be recorded and transcribed at a later date and would be made available to the public. Can you please join in for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all. Thank you. So, Gloria, can you do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finity is not here. The Secretary is here. Board Member Long.
Present.
Board Member Catalinato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu.
Here.
Present.
Board Member Neely.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum, 6 out of 7.
Okay. And any minutes, Gloria, to approve?
We do not.
No minutes, okay. So just to acknowledge that Janice Shera is with us from the Planning Department. Hi, Janice.
Hi, good afternoon, Jackie and board.
Good
Nice
to see you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hi.
so we're going to close the afternoon meeting session and go into our work session on Lewis Road PRD. Janice, I leave that in your trusty hands.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. A little unusual, but Jackie and I were talking about it at the staff meeting, and it was agreed that it's a good idea to just kind of give you a brief overview about, what the project status for Lewis Road subdivision is. It's now been submitted as a final application. I was a part of the review early on when it was a zone change, and then as it went through the Pine Barrens Commission, I'm a designated representative there. And so I'm here to show you sort of the difference, just to give you an overview of what's different. As you know, it was a preliminary plat approval from your board, and then they had to get Pine Barrens approvals, and there were significant changes made. And now they're coming back in as a final. So the chair thought it was a good idea to really orient yourselves, see what the differences are, and that were required by the Pine Barrens. And then all the nitty gritty stuff you'll be doing in the review. As you know, it's a 2-part review. The subdivision will now be handled by Jackie Fenlon with a lot of background and good information from Anthony Trezza, who did the prelim review. And then the site plan elements, which are really all about the clubhouse, the accessory golf course use, the maintenance area, the workforce housing, all those things are the site plan elements, and those will be handled by Claire. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and wait a minute, sorry, I can find. Okay, so you don't see
I hope we have some good maps, Janice.
I
Nobody
do.
knows the other maps, yeah.
So just give me one moment while I figure out what I'm doing here. Why it's not working. Just close everything else. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. I have too many things open, I think. And so when I go to share my screen, I have too many things
You also
happening.
have 2 names up, Janice. So you're
Yeah,
showing-
one is my iPad so you can see me,
Oh,
and one
okay.
is my computer so I can share my screen,
Okay, I
because my
just-
regular computer doesn't have a camera.
Okay, just to make sure you weren't making this problem too.
Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, I had to
People-
actually
people
tell
located
Charles, like, I'm
yourself.
here as 2 people as one. And Wayne Bruin, I asked to be let in because he is the representative for the applicant. And in case you do need anybody from the project team about specific questions I'm not familiar with, and he can call upon whoever is the appropriate person to answer your question. So hi, Wayne. Okay, now let me try to share this. Here we go. Okay, so this was the map of your preliminary approval. The yield was 118 lots. The yield remains 118 lots, but you can see how these lots over here are in, you see this sort of red and yellow shaded areas, those are steep slopes. So that was what you approved, and you can pinch out or zoom in if that's helpful to you. Now, this was what the Pine Barrens approved. So this then, and the difference will be on the next map actually, but you can see that basically in order to meet the standards and guidelines, one of which was unfragmented open space parcel, making sure that all of this in this whole area, if you can see my cursor moving, was part of the.
We're not seeing your
Cursor,
cursor.
Janice.
Okay, so I'm going to show you this next map because that's the easiest thing to look at. So right here was the future well site where you would have to clear a significant amount of vegetation to get to. The Pine Barrens required that future well site to be moved. Additionally, this STP site was required to be moved, and all the lots, and I'm just going to go back to this map. If you see these lots up here, you don't see my little cursor moving? No?
We see it, but it's blurry.
Okay, but you, well, okay, this is actually better.
Maybe you
We
can.
also walked the property at length with Marty Shea to look at, you know, the open space, the cleared areas, what was actually there. And all these lots that were previously where these 2 red arrows are, or this 1 red arrow really, got shifted and clustered even more so than you had required. So just zoom in a little bit there. So this, all this here, which were lots, are now shifted down and pushed over, and the well site removed and the STP site moved.
Why was the STP, why were they moved? What was the thinking?
The thinking was they didn't want it to interfere with the you know, first of all, it was a matter of hydrology, and secondly, it was a matter of clearing and getting there to put a well site. It was found to be more appropriate to condense it and move it toward this area where the development already is, and that they could clear it and get to it.
And the STP moving of the STP?
That too. Also, it really, everything was done to maximize the, as you see here, maximize our unfragmented open space and not impact the steep slopes whatsoever. So all these large woodland lots that were like up on the hill, basically, they were cutting into the hill, got relocated here. And all this is now protected open space, part of all that open space. Let's see. So these were the things that, you know, it was 40%, and all the grading, the DEC requires them to balance the grading on site. Early on, there was a lot of talk about getting, you know, some kind of conveyor system of taking all this cuts out, you know, cut and fill plan was really impactful. And now they're going to mass balance the grading on site. So there is no taking any fill or, grades offsite. And if I'm getting any of this wrong, I'm sure Wayne will correct me, but that's my approximation. And then, so lastly, we have asked as part of this review, we thought Claire, Jackie, and I, and with Anthony's input as well, I don't want to, minimize his input because it's really important, is that these sections, we should really review this in sections because it's just so complicated to look at it, as a whole. Of course, you always are seeing it as the whole picture, but we asked them to phase this as sections so we could look at them, zoom in on it and look at them closely. So they asked if these sections would be, amenable to look at. And I think that's a good idea. So basically it's this residential section, 4 different residential sections, and then the rest of it being and then the maintenance area, and the workforce housing as its own, and then sort of the golf course and all the carry holes and the associated infrastructure as a separate. So you sort of we can then say, okay, this is section R1 and drill down and look at that. This is R2, and sort of so we can kind of get manageable views of the project, and you can then, look at, and the only other thing I would also note, I'm sorry, let me go back. I'm sorry, I'm skipping around here. The other difference, let me just zoom in here, is the access. So they had initially wanted to take access from this roadway, Oldfield Road, that was part of that Kajowski subdivision. And instead they're asking for access along this farmland, which will be part of your review, is talking about that. I'm not going to get into that now, but I just wanted to point out that that's really one of the biggest differences, is where they take access. Now, internally, it's the same for them, coming here or going through here are the same two things. But, you'll have to look at the traffic and make sure the distance between those two access points is appropriate, etc. But those are the big picture. Those are the big differences. The well site being moved, these lots on the hill being moved, the FTP site being moved, and taking access from a different point. I would say those are the biggest changes that are happening.
Janice, was the golf course reconfigured?
The golf course was reconfigured because it was shrunk, it closed down. It was made small, more compact, I guess is the right way of putting it. And
So was that a Pine Barrens Commission request?
Yes.
To get it all out of the open space area, right?
it was, anything that happened was in compliance with the club, was in order to create that unfragmented open space. And now actually I'm going to stop sharing this and share a different screen.
Before you share a different screen, Janice, because you might want to go back. The workforce housing, when did it become a separate area and not mixed?
No, it never was always.
It
separate.
never was. It was
I know,
always a
but we had
separate,
an objection to, Gloria, we had an objection to that from the beginning. So I'm bringing that up again because now it's becoming, workforce housing and maintenance is becoming one plot to look at. And that was not usually the way that we look at workforce housing. Workforce housing, we historically have looked at it as a part of the whole development mix, either mixed in or such. This separating it out into the maintenance area, is this something to be discussed now, or when is this discussed?
Well, that's part of the site plan, and you have every ability to discuss that through the process. This is really just so I could introduce all the different changes to you. Putting the workforce housing into the golf course community housing was, I guess, not something that the applicant has agreed to. They wanted to provide money into a fund. I believe the board said, no, you have to build it on site. So they did build, put it down in this location, separate and apart from the actual residential subdivision. So that would
Janice,
be,
if I
Sure.
may.
Go ahead.
If I may, the board may recall that what Janice just described was that originally the plan was to pay into the fee. It was the planning board during the pre-application you got input from the housing commissioner at the time. First of all, that you wanted to have the housing constructed on site, but more importantly, the housing commissioner recommended to this board, and you accepted it, was that the form of the housing was to be rental housing, not single family dwellings. So that prompted us to provide a space for the rental housing, and the preliminary plat you approved was shown in a separate area, and that hasn't changed pretty much since the development. It was always a separate lot.
Okay, I
What
remember.
changed,
I remember.
what changed is the sewage treatment plant was relocated. And
I
that was recommended by the Pine Barrens, as well as the water well site. I just want to point out was also in conjunction with the water authority, who preferred the location to be on the Parlato property and in that area that was formerly a farm field. That was their preferred location. So that's why it was shifted there as opposed to being shifted anywhere else on our on the Hills South parcel. So, and the Pine Barrens thought that was acceptable as well. So those two shifts were prompted by the Pine Barrens Commission and the county to locate the sewage treatment plant as far south on the property as possible.
Wayne, I'm sorry, I don't remember us accepting or agreeing to having it on a separate, in a separate area. In fact, I remember a lot of discussion regarding that. And I don't remember it also being being rentals and not condos, but I guess we're going to be able to still revisit that. This is not revisit this issue.
I think we'll go back and we'll
Anybody else
revisit.
on the board have a different recollection than I'm having on?
Well, Robin, let's talk a little bit about process, and
Okay.
Janice, if you're there. You know, we were only an involved agency in the review of this. The town board was the lead agency. So we have an opportunity now to look at subdivision and site plan details, since we are now, I would assume, a lead agency. But those details, and we'd have to look back on the various reports to see what it was that we did recommend. So
We can provide that for you. And that's, you know, we can do that in advance of, we're trying to
give us
you
an
know,
overview. Yeah.
give you an overview of just what changed in terms of the Pine Barrens, so you understand like there's the difference, but all of this is still for you to review in the final plat and make sure there's adequate access and infrastructure for the whole development. And that's really the purpose of the final plat. And we can look at and I don't know, Claire, if you want to weigh in, the workforce housing issue. It was always sort of in a building as far as I recall it, but you know, that conversation was obviously something between, you know, that took place at the preliminary. So Claire, do you have any thing you want to add?
It was I think it was a discussion.
Or Anthony even as well.
Want to turn you off your thing?
Madam Chair, if I could interrupt, Mr. Vice Chair Finnerty is here.
Great. Hi, Dennis.
Just to clarify for the board, the issue of the affordable housing units, we did discuss. The applicant wanted to pay a fee. The board wasn't inclined to do that. We got recommendations from Kyle at the time regarding the location of the affordable housing, which was proposed to be located near the maintenance building and not within the rest of the subdivision. But I can certainly attest to the fact that certainly integrating within the subdivision proper was certainly discussed and mentioned. It certainly came out of my mouth at some point. But it didn't go ultimately in that direction. But you know, there's been project changes. So, you know, you'll go through the site plan, the subdivision with Claire and Jackie on that issue. But that's how that went down.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
also don't recall that it was going to be rental. That's an aha from my memory.
Mhm.
I'm not sure in the workforce housing requirements that you can say it has to be ownership or rental as long as they're meeting Chapter 216 requirements for affordability. I think that's really the main objective.
Yeah, I'm just saying, to my knowledge, the fact that it was rental was never defined.
Okay,
was-
well, so in this proposal now, they are proposing that to be rental and managed by who, Wayne? Who will manage those?
We haven't determined that yet, but that was the recommendation of both the housing commissioner and Kyle as the planning and development administrator. And that was the recommendation for rental housing. And the issue of integrating in this subdivision where you have a golf course, the question is how do you integrate affordable housing into that subdivision where everybody has to share and pay for all the recreational assets and so on. So it was always intended to be a separate lot and to be rental housing because the preference was there's a shortage of rental housing. That was addressed, and I'm looking at your preliminary resolution, which acknowledges that and that it was approved. It was shown on the preliminary plat. So if you showed the preliminary plat, you could see the location of that was on the approved preliminary plat. Like I said, the only thing that changed was the sewage treatment plant was now relocated to the south of the maintenance building.
Procedural question, so I don't hold this up with a long debate on this issue. Anything we do today regarding affordable housing is in now concrete or granite, or are we still in discussions? What is the procedure for making a determination on the affordable housing?
I believe when it came to the preliminary plat, that process basically solidifies the yield and the requirements to provide the affordable housing. So, in terms of whether you want to look at the building that it's in, the amount of bedrooms that they have, how that looks and feels on the site. I think that's what under your purview at this point. But in terms of like the number of units or, I think you've kind of already covered that ground.
Number of units, I'm fine. Whether it's a rental or whether it's a rental or a condo and where
rental and all that, yes, Chapter 216. So that would govern that.
So we still have time to make changes.
You can look at, its orientation on the lot. You can look at, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just want to say, because I want to look at the preliminary approval, but my understanding would be that you could make adjustments to all of that as long as the basic, the yield is calculated already in terms of how many you're going to have, but you have leeway in terms of how you want that broken up or whatever. And then we'll look at I know Wayne is saying right now that it speaks to placement as well. So I don't have it in front of me, so I can't speak to that, but that's something that I'll look at and try and advise you on.
Okay, thank you.
So Janice, I have just a quick question. So those are site plan issues, right? And the planning board, that's the purview of the planning board.
Correct.
And it addresses some of what Robin is asking. In other words, how much authority does this planning board have in terms of site plan review? So that's one question. The subdivision question I have, if we were to go back to the maps, what are all those small little units in the northern portion of the map? Are those, in other words, I know that this property is a compilation of
these.
Yeah.
Those are like abandonments and transfers, but they are not development parcels. Is that correct, Wayne?
That's an existing old file map, which we developed our yield from, and that's
Right.
all to be dedicated to the town of Southampton.
Okay,
Right.
so the development rights were lifted, used.
And they were put over here.
Used for the Lewis Road development. Okay.
That-
And then,
Jackie,
and
if I may, on that subject, I was really hard to figure out what those maps were that were in our packet, but there was one that was labeled Hampton Bay's sending parcels. Is that what we're talking about now?
No, I don't believe so.
No. We
Gloria,
have all the transfers are from the old file maps in this area.
yeah,
Everything
Gloria.
is-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
I was gonna say, everything is supposed to be within the same school district. And then I just wanted to follow up with Wayne for a second. I know there were discussions about lifting the rights from the Parlato piece. Was that ever done, or is that what's contemplated here? I know it's been a
That is
while.
part of this application.
Okay,
So it is part or not? I'm sorry. What
It
did you say?
is.
It is. So you lifted development rights from Parlato and used them here?
Correct.
Okay, so that's all this, and so,
Part of the 600 acres that involved in this project, including the property to the north of the Sunrise, the properties here, and all the Parlato Timperman properties,
right,
which are to the east.
So the Parlato project that came before the planning board has been officially discontinued, and it's now being brought back in here, because we did review.
That's a totally separate parcel. The 33 acres south of the railroad track has nothing to do with this application.
That's what that's the
well,
confusion.
there are two Parlato pieces, is what you're saying?
There were, Janice, if you move the map down a little bit. So you see, this is the Parlato property that's between the Long Island Railroad and the Sunrise Highway, and then the parcels to the north of the Sunrise Highway. There are Parlato properties, formerly Parlato properties, south of the Long Island Railroad, which is to the right of the screen, that extend down to Old Country Road and then extend to Montauk Highway.
that's the piece southeast.
Right. All
That's
that is not part of this application at all.
Okay.
And is that still an active? Does anybody in planning know if that's still an active?
That will be considered separately from this application.
Robin?
Available for development.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank you.
Robin, can you hear me?
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
the pre-application for that subdivision that you're referring to is long expired. So as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing active on that property.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Okay, so Jackie Fenlon, from a subdivision point of view, it's pretty clear, right? The development rights and that were lifted from those properties from the Parlato parcels are all moved to here. So
Yes.
that entire piece then is open, the town, that's being given to the town, the 600 something acres?
Correct. The old file map parcels that you can see here on the top of the page are going to be as dedicated open space, as well as the parcels north of Sunrise Highway.
Okay.
And Jackie, my comment about parcels from Hampton Bays, did I misread that label or?
Yeah, I think I had said eastern sending parcels. So it was an aerial just because it was so hard to show, I did one global aerial, but then I was trying to zoom in on the different quadrants so that you could see the existing tax parcels. So I think that one said sending parcels, which would be the area along Central Avenue.
But I thought it was labeled Hampton Bays, which is why.
I don't think it was, but I mean, I can go back and look. I think it said eastern sending parcels for Lewis Road. But I'll double check that, Gloria.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was the only note I made to myself from those
Okay.
maps, which really didn't tell me a whole lot.
Yeah, it was just the aerial, the basic aerial of the properties.
So Janice, you there? Yeah. You talked a little bit about access to the parcel. And it was, we were made aware of the fact that Spinney Road is being used, and that is a town road. So is that, what's happening with that access? That has been closed?
Well, Spinney Road is, Jackie, you want to answer that? That was probably be a good question for you, but the Spinney Road is still, it ends at some point and it just becomes like, trails. It's not fully improved.
Yeah, so currently I did a site inspection recently. So there's currently like a a limiting fence, like a chain link fence that's at the terminus of Spinney Road. So I did ask for details. How are we dealing with this? Because the development does come up from Lewis Road and then crosses Spinney Road. So I want to make sure that we have some details, but I want to make sure the board is comfortable understanding how this road is going to transition from a dead end, but still have some, ability for town residents who currently use the trail and Spinney Road to the north. How are they going to get there? We've been discussing a possible trailhead and how that's going to be designed. So we have now, it's almost designed as an intersection, but that intersection basically links to the eastern side of the development lots. So we're looking at that closely, and we brought that up to the applicant.
Right, but who owns Spinney Road is my question.
I believe it's underlying town road.
It's town road.
Yeah.
So can it be closed off like that?
That's-
What was that, Wayne?
What was that, Wayne?
So Spinney Road was a road laid
Hang on,
out.
I'll go back to the map, sorry.
Yeah, it was laid out, and it extends all the way from Lewis Road to Flanders Road. And you can see it sort of bisect the Hill South property, and it goes, originally it crossed the Sunrise Highway, and then the Sunrise Highway came along and bisected it. And therefore, but it was never really opened and improved by the town at the time, because that goes way back, probably the 30s or the 40s, when they laid it out. But the improvements of Spinney Road, as where the cursor is, extend only up a little bit past that turn. And then the town basically put a barricade up and closed it off, although it is a dirt road, and various dirt bikers and the like and other maybe hikers use it. But it terminates at the Sunrise Highway chain link fence. And similarly on the north side, there's a chain link fence, and it's a dirt path that goes all the way to Flanders Road, and you'll see a barricade up near Flanders Road where access is limited as well. So it's still town owned, but the town itself restricts access to it and because it's not paved.
But there is a posting that is a private posting. It doesn't appear to be a town posting closing that road.
No, that was always the town who originally did it. So we had put up restrictions of people getting access because the dirt bikers and other people dumping on the property, we tried to put up limitations going onto our property up in that area as well.
So Discovery Land has not put up a posting and a chain link fence closing Spinney Road.
I believe we put it up on where our property access into our property, but the town had the original barricades on Spinney Road.
Jackie, can we have someone check to see if that posting and closing of Spinney Road is town-owned or Discovery?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the biggest point of concern there is sort of like where the Spinney Road and then these internal roads cross and what's happening there. And we've asked them for sort of renderings and views of what happens in these intersections, because that should be of interest to you, especially if someone's, it's pretty much not paved anywhere here, but they're, traversing across it, which is fine, but you want to see what's happening on either side of it, if anything.
All right. So Janice, this is the map as it exists. Are we looking at?
This is the map of the Pine Barrens approved plan. And the only thing that's different now is the access point kind of, I hope I get this right, comes through here. Correct. At this point. Mm-hmm. This is Cracky, this is Kijowski. This is an unimproved road that had 4 lot subdivision, like going like here. 4, is that right? And there was like 4 lots, and it was a conservation opportunity subdivision. And this road is not part of this proposal now. It's an easement which links up at the same point on the site, but through this Cracky property. And so you'll be looking at that as part of this whole proposal.
I thought the access was going to be off of Spinney Road. Now I'm totally confused.
Lewis.
Lewis Road to this easement road into here. And Spinney Road is how these houses take access. You could come through here, but that's not the main point of access. It's through here.
Okay.
If I may, from the beginning of the plan, and when this was first reviewed by the planning board as just a basic subdivision, the residents of Spinney Road preferred that we not take access off of Spinney Road. So we have honored that request, and even though Spinney Road provides us with legal frontage and legal access, we've always tried to get an alternative access. At one point, we were down on the southern part of Lewis Road, that tiny little section, and providing access up to lots that were down in the southern section. But because all the lots are now focused in the disturbed areas of the property, we sought this alternative access over Old Farm Road, which is a private mapped street. It's not completed, it's not open, it's not used. In fact, this board will recall there is a performance bond posted that is secured by deeds in that subdivision. So it's on, and there's no performance bond or otherwise. There is an offer of dedication. And that road is private. We believe we had an agreement with the landowner, and they constantly changed, and we can't get to an agreement with them to use that road, and they have no intention of paving or dedicating that to the town in the near future. So to provide this other means of access, we went to the Cracky property, and they offered to give us an easement, which will allow us to get the access into our property in essentially the same point. The only difference is the point of access onto Lewis Road will be about 300 to 500 feet to the southeast, sort of a little, right about that area. But
So
otherwise, it ends in the same point of access when it enters our property.
is anything else happening on that Cracky parcel?
It's currently nursery stock. It's agricultural nursery stock.
Okay. Janice, can you talk a little bit about the golf course to us, please, and just tell us how it changed?
Sure, I'm going to actually share a different document now.
A different map?
No, this is just a comparison
I see.
chart
Okay.
of the clearing, etc. And you'll see the previous plan and then the revised plan. And of course, we have to confirm all of this, but you'll see, that the previous proposal in the prelim versus the final, the numbers are getting,
Different.
they're clearing less is the point. And that's what the Pine Barrens wanted. And that's more protective, I would say, of the environment. So it's a better plan in that way, but they're getting sort of squeezed down. So in terms of like the actual golf course, it's still an 18-hole golf course, if I'm not mistaken. The carry holes, etc., are still going to be like a natural vegetated setup, with the understory, etc. And but Claire, it would be better suited to talk about the actual different improvements on the site plan briefly, because she's been reviewing it. So my thing is really just been trying to say, what did you approve? And now what are they asking for now that's different? And so we asked them to give us this sort of comparative analysis that we'll need to confirm through this process in terms of what's remaining, what's being cleared, how it's going to affect, what you had required. And, that's the level of review that we're at. So Claire, do you want to talk about the site plan? I don't really have a good map of that.
So can I just ask if that Cracky property that's listed, that's another Cracky property? Other than the Cracky property we were just talking about? Yes, Wayne.
That's right.
Okay.
Before you get off that screen, Janice, I'm looking at the labels on those two columns of numbers. The one on the left says prior, and the one on the right says revised. Is this a number of acres that are cleared? Because I'm confused because the right-hand column is
No,
almost.
that's preserved. No.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah. It
It
needs to
doesn't
be,
label it as preserved. So.
yes.
Right. We can refine this when they're for the completeness, like this is all just for the work session. But when we get them for, when everything is settled for complete, we'll be sure that it's really clear for you to be able to see. So that I'll take that as a takeaway, make sure that these are all labeled in terms of this is how much is being preserved, not cleared.
Yeah, because I'm a numbers person, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, what I'm seeing bears no resemblance to what you're telling us. Because I thought it was cleared.
No.
Thank you. Feel much better.
Good. Yeah.
May
And now I just wanted to let Claire have a chance to tell you about the site plan changes.
Oh, okay, because you're going through the change of the STP, because that's where I have questions. I'll wait.
Do you want to talk about the STP?
No, I'll let you go.
An overview of the site plan.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just basically there's some high level big picture changes, more a larger clubhouse, I believe, but we're trying to confirm that. The pools, etc. And I think the STP was the biggest change.
Mhm.
And the maintenance building. Is that true, Claire? And some more ball fields, etc. Is that right?
Right, exactly. So and things change and during a project. So I'll have more of a comparison of item by item. Yeah, we're trying to get a handle on the size of the clubhouse when it was originally approved. I'm not quite sure if it was originally contemplated that some of the condo units, there's 8 condo units associated with the project, they are now in the clubhouse. So that may have made that structure more substantial. The parking for the clubhouse is also in the basement. So that makes it a 3-level structure. I actually have the plans if you want to see them. So we can take a look at the clubhouse first. Just share my screen with you. So this is the clubhouse building. And this is, as you can see, it's 2-story. The 2nd story here is the 7 of the condo units. The 8th condo unit is in a separate golf shop building. And so the 8th unit is there. And so if you can see, this is the floor plans, the basement. It is a parking garage you get through from a ramp. And this is the main entrance. So if a handicapped person wanted to come into the building, use the building, there would be an elevator here providing access to the main floor, which is the restaurant and the locker rooms. There's a general area here for they're describing it as a speakeasy and a kids area. So that's the clubhouse. This is the 1st floor. This is a restaurant here. I think this is the area for the restaurant, the support. And these are the locker rooms for the men's and women's locker rooms. It includes a spa. And then this is the 1st floor of the fitness facility that is also here. And here would be the swimming pools. Originally, the swimming pool was 1 large swimming pool. They now have 3 swimming pools, 1 being a smaller kiddie pool and 2 other pools. One's like a larger pool and one's like one you do laps for on the facility. You can see that on the site plan more. And then the 3rd floor is, as I described, the 7 of the condo units, and then it connects over here is the other building for the pro shop. So that's part of your site plan review. We'll look at that. Always, there was going to be a clubhouse, always a pro shop, locker rooms, those kinds of things.
But the change, we're interested in the change from what
we're gonna get a handle on that. I don't have readily available the original plans for the clubhouse, so I can't do a play-by-play of like what's additional in terms of square footage, but we'll get that information so you'll have it. And what's helpful is that since even last meeting, we have now this sections that we can contemplate. You'll have the clubhouse and section, so you can have that area with the pools and any amenities they have on that site. And then you'll have a section for like the play fields. And there was more of that, there was a little bit more play fields associated with the project. There's 2 tennis courts. Now I think there's pickleball courts because now pickleball is all the rage. So that area was originally in this area here for the project. That hasn't changed. It's just gotten slightly bigger to allow for more recreational.
Has anything gotten slightly smaller?
Not
The
that I
lots,
see.
the lots have, so they got clustered even closer down, much smaller. Many of the lots are much smaller, but as you know, under Chapter 247 open space, you have the ability to cluster those lots, and we'll have a table indicating the different lot sizes and how they would be arranged. And that's why we really wanted to sort of make it more of a regular, where you could tell, like, okay, in this section, there's this many of these kinds of lots and this many of those type of lots, to more routine in terms of how you're looking at it.
But have the lots gotten smaller because the condos are moving into the clubhouse?
No, the lots have gotten smaller because they've been clustered off the slopes.
But this movement into the clubhouse,
That was always planned.
that was always the plan?
Yes,
Yeah.
and the buildings didn't change. The floor plans have been developed more for this application at this time. But if you recall from the PDD, there was a much larger clubhouse. And when we got back to the planning board at the pre-app and the zoning board, it then became much smaller and separated out into buildings. And 8 of the units were always to be on the second floor of the buildings in that common area. And so Claire will be able to go back and we'll, she already asked, and we'll go back and pull those floor plans and elevations that were reviewed at the preliminary and should be able to give you a comparison. But they didn't change. That was always the plan, to have 8 of the units in the second floor of those common buildings.
I know we had a concern about an underground parking, unless I'm not recollecting correct again.
That was always part of the plan.
But that was a great concern to the planning board, putting the parking lot underground, parking underground. Am I correct, Lori? And you're
I remember the condos were always in that building. And I also remember that we were concerned about the parking garage under the building.
okay.
Has there been an analysis of depth to groundwater in that area?
Depth to groundwater is not an issue at this elevation. And that was looked at and designed and considered in the environmental review as well.
So you're concerned about the underground parking. You want a detail of what that will entail.
Yeah.
The type of sealant.
Environmental impact, for sure.
And also the air in the underground parking. I know we had another application where there was a lot of work done to come up with ways to make sure that the air doesn't get filled with carbon monoxide.
So,
Okay, well, I think that could all be included in the review. We want to keep your agenda moving. So if you don't have any other questions, and if you're in agreement with sort of looking at this in these sort of 4 phases, plus the golf course, plus the sort of workforce housing and maintenance, if you like this idea of splitting it up into these sort of groups, or any other configuration you feel happy about, but we just thought that would be a good idea to then be able to really look at each section independently and then as it relates to the whole.
right. I just want to say, Jackie Fenlon, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
I think when you go and check the site at Spinney Road, you're going to find a sign that was posted by Discovery. So please take a photograph of that and enter it into the record. Wayne, you should know about that.
Okay, we'll check it.
I will double check that.
All right.
With the
Because
whole
if it's a
road.
town road, Discovery Land should not be closing it. And you'll go over the golf course with us, Claire. That was my original question, but we'll wait, I guess, till site plan review.
Can I,
Right, we need additional information on that. We need information about what the carry holes will be with the natural vegetation. We just need to break it down so it's good, easy for us to review, and therefore we can explain it to you in an easy way. So we definitely need more information from the applicant.
Pine Barrens Commission did alter the configuration of the golf course. Is that correct or not?
Correct.
They did, it did. Okay, so from what we saw originally to what it is important for us to see.
They
Can I
basically
just-
shifted holes from the north and pushed them to the south.
I've got two concerns. I have a concern about this plat, and I understand trying to break this project down into 4, but I somehow am having an innate problem with connecting the workforce housing with the maintenance area, because it seems to be locking that issue in and putting it aside to the maintenance area and a discussion of that. That I am having a problem with. I don't know if anybody else is, but looking at the maintenance section and the workforce housing together instead of the workforce housing with the residential, to me, is making determinations by
That's
just.
fine. We just did that for ease of like location, but we can easily group the workforce housing in as part of R4 and then make the maintenance area its own separate review.
I'd feel more comfortable with that. That it would
That's
be-
easy enough. No problem.
Isn't the
Well,
project closed down during the winter? Isn't it just seasonal use?
No, this is
Correct.
this is not like accessory golf course housing. This is actually Chapter 216
I'm talking
year-round
about
housing.
I'm talking about the whole project. Isn't it seasonal? But doesn't it close down?
Yes.
Yes, it does, as Wayne is saying.
Okay, so I'm trying to envision how we would incorporate this into the residential.
No, I'm just saying
Oh.
we wouldn't incorporate we would just incorporate it into the review. Like, it's not like, oh, workforce housing is with the maintenance stuff. It's all part of the residential review, but it's still in that same location. We're not putting it into
Oh.
the condo area. No. We're just saying in terms of its review, it's not, grouped in with the maintenance yard, in other words.
And why is workforce housing being considered in lieu of staff housing?
That's an accessory to issue, as you know, from Golf the Bridge recently.
Yeah.
And we've been challenged on that. So it's not for their own golf caddies to live in. This is Chapter 216 workforce housing for anybody in the, to live there.
Okay, and there'll be the school impact studies, et cetera, that usually
That
accommodates.
already took place in the original secret.
Oh, it did. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm new to this file, as is George and Tom, so catching up.
But I think
If the planning staff can give us some links to the original, Anthony, to the original documents that we.
We will. We
Yeah,
will.
Good.
And Craig, though, I think you hit another issue. Will they be planning to have staff housing? And if they are, where is that?
Now, you could theoretically say, you know what, pay the Chapter 216 housing fees and you can use this as your caddy housing as accessory. That's something you could consider. I'm just throwing it out there. But I thought the workforce housing was more valuable to us being built and not just for their purposes. But that is something you could consider.
Well, I was actually going to the question, will they be coming back looking for staff housing after this application is finalized? What are their long-term plans for where the staff is going to live if there's a need to have them live on site?
Do you have any answer to that, Wayne?
I believe that it will be off-site, and there's no plans on this property to do it.
May I get some clarification now on the STP?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, may I ask why the Pine Barrens first off decided to move it from an area away from the community to an area that abuts the community?
They did not want it to impact the unfragmented open space. And that's their standard and guideline. That's what they are looking at for the purposes of the act. So they're not looking at it in the same way you are for that reason. But there was public hearings related to that. So they did hold several public hearings at that level, and they decided they wanted it moved.
And Janice, was there not also an environmental issue about the water, the flow and direction of the water from, north to south? Was that part of the consideration at all, do you think, or not?
I'd have to look back, but
I
it was
think
more.
Because
more-
when we did our supplemental review, there was a lot of conversation about that. And so it would be helpful, I think, to look at those recommendations. Because we were told that whatever environmental impacts there were, that we had the ability in reviewing the site plan, we didn't have any authority as an involved agency. That was the town's decision. But now that the site plan is ours, that we would have the authority to look at that. So if we could resurrect that, just take a look at it, because it's just to refresh all of us and to educate the newer board members, it would be helpful.
Sure, we could do that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So I hope that gives you enough of a preview. Obviously, there's still a bunch more to go over. They still need to give us a lot more documentation in order to be deemed complete. So you won't be seeing this for a little bit of time, but when they come back for completeness review, we'll be sure to have, these issues, with more information for you to consider.
It's been very helpful, I think, to.
I'm sorry, I just have two other questions. There was a stop order that was placed on this property due to overclearing back, I think, in October or September, at which point the planning board was to be given a report from the town attorney's office and from Marty Shea's office as to whether there is going to be violations, whether the stop order is still in place, whether there would have to be re-veg. I never saw, was there any decision?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So at the time, the real entity that had the true violation was the Pine Barrens Commission, because of the fact that they were the ones that had a final, they weren't in your purview, they weren't under review for anything at the time that it was being cleared. So that you have a law on the books that say say we deem them complete for final plat, unless you say, okay, you can clear here, there, or whatever, they can't do anything. So they would have been in violation if they were under active review with the town. They were not, but they were in violation of a Pine Barrens approval that said they were not to commence any clearing until certain conditions were met. So they had a, compliance conference with the state. They have penalties through the state, and it's basically a compliance issue through the Pine Barrens. Not,
I looked into that matter and I spoke with Marty about it. And at this point, they were going back and forth trying to, and as Janice was saying, the Pine Barrens Commission is the one that was the enforcement agency on that. And they've gone back and forth a couple of times trying to work out some resolution that everyone can live with. My understanding is that the last round of they were not able to reach a mutual agreement, but that discussion is ongoing. And if the board would like, I can try and reach out to John Malazzo, the attorney for the Pine Barrens Commission, and see if they have anything they'd like to share with the planning board regarding that.
So there's not an open violation at this point?
There's the violation is with the Pine Barrens, and I can speak to it because I am privy to those conversations. And what is happening, and Wayne can attest to, is that there is a fine associated with that violation that they are in contesting in terms of the degree of the fine. But other than that, they have complied with what the Pine Barrens has said. They've complied with the town to stop the work. So the only thing is this, that I would say now, is that as part of this whole plan, you in your preliminary approval have required monitoring wells to go in. They were attempting to place those monitoring wells, and that was why they started clearing. We will, as part of this whole process, go over those monitoring well plans and how the clearing to place the monitoring wells meet or do not meet those Pine Barrens standards, and they may or may not have to go back to the Pine Barrens. But that's part of this whole review, and I would like to make that hopefully phase 1, which is, how to place those groundwater monitoring wells sooner rather than later, so you have that baseline information that you required initially.
So Janice and Christine, even though this is an active application with the town of Southampton, there's no authority for overclearing? Why?
It was not at the time it was being cleared. They were trying to, with your preliminary plat approval, which required the groundwater monitoring wells to be placed. But the Pine Barrens had the actual approval, final approval, that said you can't clear without X, Y, and Z. And they didn't do those things. So they went through a compliance conference and order on consent. All of that has gone on. And now it's just a matter of the fines, the penalties through that process. So they are, more than willing to comply, I would say. It's just that we they can't put in the wells without clearing, and they can't get to a certain point of what they're trying to accomplish without the wells. So that's, they're in a little bit of a catch-22, but now once we deem them complete and we refer once we have everything, of course, and we refer the groundwater monitoring plan to our consultant, then you can consider what they need to do to place those wells on the site. And if they have to go back to Pine Barrens, then they have to go back, If they're trying to clear in areas that were supposed to be preserved, they would have to go back to the commission.
Right, but as far as we're concerned, because it's an active application, there should be no clearing. Right? Is that
Correct, right now.
Until you
that has to
approve
be
it, yeah,
resolved,
there's
right.
no clearing. Also, I just want to mention, the clearing in our realm is the SWIP, and that's through the town engineer's office. He's reviewing it for the stormwater pollution prevention plan.
And
I just say something. I just want to say that, as Janice indicated, we were trying to comply with the preliminary, and the attempt was to put in monitoring wells in already cleared areas. Unfortunately, the contractor got a little zealous on some of the dirt paths that were not wide enough for the rigs to go in there, and they end up clearing some portions to get access to the cleared areas where those wells were. So when it was brought to our attention, it was immediately stopped. And as Janice indicated, there's been discussions ongoing as of today with the Pine Barrens Commission regarding that. But we hope to do exactly as Janice indicated, because there are other monitoring wells which are not in cleared areas or were not planned to be in cleared areas. They were planned to be in wooded areas. And we held off specifically until such point where this board can authorize those. But the intent was, as the town and Marty Petrovic had indicated, is try to get those wells in as soon as possible to get a baseline for all monitoring before any other disturbance on the property. So in other words, you don't want to put them in the day before you start construction. So that was the intent. And we've since have paid more attention to exactly how and when and where, and been in constant communication now with Janice as to that process, how we can get to that next step.
Hey, to one last question on what was submitted as part of the work session was a document said final plat for subdivision review. And it notes in here that there was, is that new covenants or restrictions have been, CNRs have been placed on this property?
That's a standard note that we will be imposing covenants. So that's like a catch-all note to notify anyone who's reviewing the map.
It has been recorded.
But that will be the filed map.
And we will notify you. There will be covenants and easements that the health department requires. It's pretty much standard covenants for how water service, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll provide you with copies once they have been actually accepted and recorded.
Okay, so there has been no new covenants and restrictions placed on this property since the last time we reviewed it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Janice, thank you very much. Claire,
Sure.
Jackie, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
It's been very helpful.
I think it's all been a big team effort, and with the board too, I think we'll all sort of, be sure to cross every T and dot every I and make sure that this is where you need it to be in order to feel comfortable. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll close out the work session and go into regular session. And the first application is Anthony, that's you, 74 Priscilla Avenue. Anthony?
Yep.
Yeah.
First one you said?
74 Priscilla Avenue.
No,
The Hampton-based Fire District is number 2.
Base Fire District is number 2.
What am I looking at? I didn't print out a new one. Okay, go to the Hampton-based Fire District.
All right. So just a quick reminder for the planning board. We've been looking at this for some time. Here's the Good Ground Park up here. This is Hampton Bays, Montauk Highway. This property, which is in the Village Business Zoning District, 84 West Montauk Highway, 70,000 square feet. It's got an existing garage on there. This was all part of the Hampton Bays District property, for which we've been looking at a 3-lot subdivision for some time now. This is the whole property. Over here is a state-owned drainage basin owned by the state, right in the middle there. The applicant, let me just bear with me. Okay. And so the proposal for that piece, this is the drainage basin in the middle, is for a 3-lot subdivision. The 1 lot here in the front in orange would be retained by the Hampton Bays Fire District. This one in the yellow, which has the existing garage on it, would be retained by the Hampton Bays Fire District. And then the one in the middle here is retained by Good Ground Commons, and this transaction has all occurred, as you know. And this is the map based on that transaction. You might recall, ignoring the proposed lots, there's an existing easement over here in favor of the state to provide access to the drainage basin, notwithstanding the fact that the lot that's being created doesn't have any direct road frontage. It comes to a point, as you recall, that easement remains in effect and won't be affected by the subdivision. It is to note that access to this lot, which doesn't have the road frontage now, is going to be by way of an easement over a property to the west. I believe there's an existing right-of-way and easement, but Wayne could speak more to that. That's how this access would be covered. And as you may recall, we've been looking at this as part of an overall plan, as part of the Good Ground Commons. And things have sort of changed and since we first looked at this, but nevertheless, we're at this stage and for the pre-app report. So some of the issues that we've looked at already, the big thing for planning here at this point is really dealing with the east-west cross-access back here as part of the Hampton Bays corridor study, as part of the Good Ground improvements and access in east-west cross-access between all the properties is ultimately going to be accomplished. So that's really the primary issue as it relates to this subdivision. Just sorry about that. Hold on.
Anthony,
So obviously we've been looking at this.
Anthony, I have, as you've described this, it's if the state has access currently through an easement, but we're now creating a new lot that doesn't have frontage. How does the state get there?
Because and I apologize, I'll zoom in. The easement, Glorian, is defined regardless of which property it goes on. So there's a meets and bounds description for this easement. This easement will remain in place. And so rather than it being on the one property, it's going to actually cross over two properties now, but the easement will remain in place.
Okay, thank you. I didn't understand that.
Yep, nope. I appreciate the questions. Sorry. Okay, so everybody got a little introduction to the
Anthony,
project there. Who is that?
Anthony, it's Wayne.
Oh, hey, Wayne, go ahead.
Can I just interrupt and can we check to see if Stan Orchowski from the Hampton Bays Fire District is not?
Oh, sure.
You know, he's available. If I don't know if he's here or not. So.
Charles, is there a?
I don't see.
I don't
his
see
name.
one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so to go through the standards, planned residential development is not required. This is a commercial subdivision. It's a minor subdivision review. The conformance with zoning, it's worth noting that although that one lot comes to a point that doesn't have direct road frontage, there is no minimum road frontage requirement in the village business zoning district in the town zoning code, but there is a minimum road frontage requirement in section 123.25B of the town code, which I believe is the building construction requirement. So it conforms with zoning, but it doesn't conform with that section. And I believe the mechanism to address that frontage is relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals, even though it's not in the zoning code. I believe the relief mechanism is outlined and says that it goes to the zoning board. This project is an unlisted action under SECRA. Whether or not, since we're going to be doing most of the review here, I don't think a coordinated review would need to be done. I think the ZBA would be involved and probably the health department. So I think we would just do an uncoordinated review and do the SECRA in-house. No park fee is being assessed as there's no residential density being created. We held a public hearing with a 30-day written comment period. We didn't receive any comments. Obviously, it's not subject to Long Island workforce housing. The engineer gave some general comments. He noted the 20-foot frontage along the highway. And he noticed the drainage easement, but I discussed it with Matt, with Tom, and he understands that the easement remains in place now. Some of his requirements aren't really necessary at this point. For example, the covenant for the 3-inch rainfall. This isn't a residential subdivision, so we create the lots here, and then anything that happens with those lots in the future have to come back to planning board. So we wouldn't want to impose covenants and restrictions before looking at a site plan on those properties. The conservation board came back with some comments. There is no buffer requirements. They noticed that in here. I went over this with Janice. I'm not really sure why they're indicating that the state-owned recharge basin is a regulated wetlands. It's not a regulated wetlands. It's a state-owned sump that the state could come in and fill up at any point. So it's not a regulated wetlands. And then they go on to acknowledge that no buffer requirements there are no buffer requirements for this. So a 292 referral is not required. Again, the planning board is the agency any site plans, so everything would have to come back to this board regardless. Office fire prevention didn't have any specific comments relating to firefighting purposes. The Trails Advisory Board, we discussed this. They noted this whole concept of the pedestrian access from Montauk Highway to the park. Look, that's not really on the table right now. So I think there's a misunderstanding with the Trails Advisory Board. So that's why I don't have any comments in my recommendations pertaining to it. So while that's not on the table right now, cross access between the sites on the north side there near the park is on the table, and we would want to accomplish that in this case. So I just wanted to point out that I think the Trails Advisory Board misunderstood what's going on the current application and was looking what was being proposed when this application first came to the planning board. I think Robin remembers all these little back and forths. You had a lot of questions about it. So no other referral comments here. So in terms of the comments and recommendations, I don't want to read this whole thing, but basically what this says is that we're going to, as part of the subdivision, at least I'm going to recommend that we get the future cross-access agreement at this time, like we normally would. And I think Wayne's going to have a couple of questions on this, and I'll let him deal with that. The other part of it is, I think, to ensure that the plan is implemented and that we don't run into a problem in the future, that we would either want the access defined before we sign the maps and constructed so it's in place, or a bond be posted, very similar to what we would do on a road situation. So that's my recommendation as it relates to the cross access. And obviously, obviously we're looking at is in the back of the property here. Obviously everything's sort of to go, through here. So that's why we want to put it in place. Let's get back here. Again, number 2 talks about the street frontage requirement for lot 2. So they would have to get relief, the zoning board on that. The existing garage on lot 3, which is owned by the Hampton Bays Fire District. It appears that even with the new lot being created, the garage meets the setbacks, whether it's an accessory structure or a principal structure. I don't think so. I don't think there's an issue with the setbacks there. But I'm not the chief zoning administrator for the town. So it just states in here that confirm with the building inspector if there's no setback issues and there's no issues with the structure. And if there is, then it's going to have to be addressed either through the zoning board or there has to be relocated. So that's in there. 4 about the state-owned drainage basin is not a regulated wetland. So I just wanted to be clear about that. And then any final application must include the health department. Any comments that I had in there previously about engineering, about the 3-inch rainfall and some of the few other things he mentioned, I didn't put in there only because, as I said, we'll have site plans that are going to have to get reviewed and referred to the engineer. So, so that's all I have for this at this time. I don't know if the board had questions or Wayne.
Yeah, I have a question. You said the potential for a trail is not on the table now. Is that a process point, or what did you mean?
I think I would have to have Wayne or an attorney explain in a little more detail, but I believe that the negotiations between what was going to happen with that Hampton Bays Fire District property in the town haven't materialized. Is how I would define it.
Okay.
Am I right, Wayne?
If I can speak, but Anthony, I believe Mr. Orchowski's trying to get on the Zoom, and I would just ask for your indulgence to make sure he gets on and has his ability to comment. As with respect to my understanding that there is no actual plan or otherwise, I understand there were discussions about possibly the Hampton Bays Fire District, possibly selling or otherwise some sort of pedestrian access. But as far as I know, as far as the subdivision, it's not a condition, and the Hampton Bays Fire District is not offering that at this time at all. And that's not the intent behind the design, contrary to what the Trails Advisory Board are thinking. I do have to comment about the cross access, however. First and foremost, the design of the subdivision is such, and I'll remind the board that the point on lot 2 was specifically designed and requested by the Hampton Bays Fire District. If you know, the Hampton Bays Fire District own the firehouses directly across the street. They own the property. They were willing to sell the back portion for future commercial development. However, they do not want any new point of access or to be coming out across the street. They do recognize the state's right to access the property there on the dirt path or drive that is currently there, and they will continue to allow that to occur. And that's a very infrequent access. But as far as access, they have no plans to develop their 2 parcels, and they want no new access. So this design was such that that's what forced Good Ground clients who own the property to the west to get access in that direction. So if and when that parcel is ever developed, if they have their access would be to the west and not over this property. We are reserving the right to maybe have utilities come up on that flag like they do, but that's it. As far as cross access, I understand, and Anthony, you would have to share that plan, but to me, this is no different than any commercial property has no specific plan for development at this time, and that I don't think you can ask this applicant to construct or do anything unless there is a site plan. So my experience is that the best the planning board with this kind of subdivision would only ask for some future coordinated access over the properties if and when there is site plan development. And it could be at the northerly end, it could be on the southerly part of that, just north of the recharge basin, or anywhere in between, depending on how that development takes place. So the request in this report that's saying it has to be constructed or a bond is somewhat premature unless and until we know how that's to be developed. There is a plan that the town adopted for the Hampton Bays area, but as you know, there was an issue with seeker review on that, and the overlay district that was adopted hasn't been implemented and was the court directed the town go back and reconsider all that. So at this point, we're not sure how and when and where the development will take place, but that's what we believe the development of that back property will be in accordance with that grand plan. And if and when that occurs, that plan will help dictate where that cross access occurs. So at best, all we can consider, but I want to make it clear, and this is an issue for the Hampton Bays Fire District, is that in no way will access to what is lot 2, the purple stripe, any access from there be occurring directly to Montauk Highway over either one or all three of these properties. So I want to make sure that's reflected or understood so that if and when we get back to a final, that there's no confusion here on what we're proposing or what we're willing to do. We do agree with the other things that Anthony in his revised report reflects comments that we did provide based on the report that was drafted a while ago. And we are in front of the health department, as you know, so they're sort of waiting for your direction on this as well. So I don't know if Stan is here to provide any other comment. I see Stan.
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
Just before you say anything, Stan, so with respect to what Wayne just said, I understand it's a unique set of circumstances here, right? So we've done this before where we get a future cross-access agreement between two properties. And Wayne's point is well taken. I sat down, I discussed this with, Janice and everything, and we were just looking at the best way to ensure that we get this work done at some point in the future. So obviously, a bond or something like that would be great. But I have to also say, as a staff member that's done a lot of applications, we typically don't define a cross access until we know what's going on either side of the property. So in this particular case, depending on how the board comes out with it, provided that we at least obviously have the easement in place and defined by the meets and bounds description of the property, that we have to have in place. The cross access has to be documented in some capacity. The board's not inclined to do a bond or make them build it, that's okay, but the document itself has to be filed.
Well, the easement, again, Anthony, I just want to point out is the easement, if we can't.
A future cross access, Wayne, a future cross
covenant
access.
For that allowing. So we have some almost 200 feet where that access could be located depending on how and when the site plan ever comes to be.
We can work on the wording to accomplish both.
Yes.
May I be heard? Stanley Orotowski, 104 Belrose Avenue, East Northport, New York, as General Counsel for the Hampton-based Fire District. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the board, and my apologies for the delay in joining. I had sent my comments of my client to Mr. Trezza, and I just wanted to note several points very briefly. With regard to the cross-access issue, my client is very concerned about that, particularly with regard to whether that cross-access would then lead to access down onto Montauk Highway. This parcel is directly across from the main firehouse for the Hampton-based Fire Department. Access into and from that firehouse is essential that it not be obstructed by traffic. Also, I just wanted to note that there seems to be a bit of a difference of opinion between Wayne and myself with regard to the objections to the report. My client remains opposed to cross-access. Wayne's comments indicate that he objects to the easement, but he would agree to a covenant being imposed. We don't join in that position. Also, in the report that was revised by Anthony, and we received it this morning, I thank you for that, for the update. There were some significant positive changes that were made, but still remaining in the report is the requirement that the applicant seek relief with regard to the requirements of the building code with regard to the frontage. And I haven't seen an objection from Wayne on that point. And also a further review by the building department with regard to the garage on lot 3 in terms of any nonconformity that might require removing it, relocating it, or obtaining a variance, and we continue to object to that portion of the report.
Mr. Oshowski, do you understand what Wayne is saying in terms of the future cross-access easement as distinguished from an actual defined easement in the back portion? We're very clear about how you feel about the front, but do you understand what he was saying about the back portion and it's not being defined per se within the future?
We still object to it because the proposal, this is the second application for a subdivision. The original was a 4-lot subdivision. We now have the 3-lot subdivision, and the issue, to our understanding, the issue of cross-access was resolved with regard to the easements and the properties that Wayne's client also purchased, and the easements across that property to lot 2 and from lot 2. So we thought the cross-access issue was resolved on that basis.
If you find that it's not resolved, because it sounds as though it may not be, would you be amenable to a future cross-access easement not yet defined? So it would refer to the ability and the requirement to do it at such times as both pieces on either side come in for a site plan, but it would not at this point commit you to a specific meets and bounds.
Well, as I read Wayne's comments, it would be not an easement, but it would be a covenant.
That's how you file you would file the easement as a covenant, but it would be a covenant for a future cross-access easement. You'd be consenting now, should these properties come in, to within a certain amount of footage that you are amenable to, come in and agree with them to allow for this easement.
I don't think my client would. I will talk to them again, but I think the two applicants, this is a joint application. I think the two applicants are in conflict on this issue as to cross-access coming from the eastern side of our lot. Because it's already been suggested that it would be north of the reservoir between lot 2 and lot 3, and then permitting access up to Good Ground Common Park. That is a concern. Also, the concern is that if the frontage is expanded for lot 2, now we have the very situation that we would be concerned about in terms of the vehicular traffic.
On Montauk.
Yes.
Right, but that's off the table. They're just speaking about the back portion of the property at this point with a future.
East-west.
Right, but the report it talks about a pre-final application securing approval from with regard to the frontage issue. And those two factors together still cause us concern in terms of the vehicular traffic.
Anthony, can you explain that a little bit?
Stan, I'm having trouble understanding the objection there. Say that again, Stan.
You're saying, you've said in the latest version, and the earlier ones, that relief must be sought pre-file application from the building department with regard to the frontage for lot number 2.
All that it says, I have no idea why this is creating so much issue for you. The property comes down to a point. It has no road frontage. Section 123, whatever it is, of the town code says you need 20 feet, period, end of story. All that the report says is, if you need relief from it, go get the relief from whoever you have to get from. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say about that. I'm not going to say don't get relief from it. You have to get relief.
Anthony, I think he just doesn't understand. So that's separate and apart, Mr. Oshowski, that's a separate apart. That issue of having to get that relief is completely separate and apart from a cross-access easement. That's a requirement that you have to do regardless of anything. That's got to be done. So it's not up for debate. That's just something you need to do to comply with the law.
We don't have the power to approve the map without it. We don't have that power.
You have to get that relief from the zoning board of appeals. So that's a separate issue.
With regards to the cross-access, I mean, it could be structured. We certainly share your client's concerns. I mean, we don't want to funnel any additional vehicular traffic down to Montauk Highway. We can structure the cross-access. We can preclude in the language of whatever you file or record, we can preclude any vehicular access. But it's consistent with the Hampton Bays Hamlet study. It's something that's that will be, hopefully your clients can see the advantages of that, but it's something we will impose.
I understand.
And Stan, just so you know, I believe that's what I tried to express, is that no matter what cross-access, there has to be a condition in there that cross-access can't lead to access going to Montauk Highway on any one of the 3 parcels in front of them today. So lots 1, 2, and 3, no way can access come to Montauk Highway on over this subdivision map, at least from lot 2. If and when the Hampton Bays Fire District wants to develop lots 1 and 3, then you will have to come in for site plan review and deal with the access for those lots at that time.
I understand, Wayne, but when I read your comments, you indicated, it appeared to me you were committing to the covenant being imposed, and
I think what we were saying is we have no objections if they're going to impose.
That was not discussed between you and I or agreed to. So we have a difference on that.
So again, I guess the question is, if the planning board's going to impose it, we have a subdivision that's not capable of being done, Stan. So we have to come to some solution here. I think the town attorney is suggesting maybe we can look at language that would be acceptable to your client.
And it's just the mechanism for filing it is a covenant. There's not going to be like another separate covenant that says something else you don't want. What you would want, that covenant will represent what you want.
We'll be happy to look at the language.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Jackie, you're muted.
Jackie, you're on mute.
Yeah. Anthony, we're on action deadline here. So do we need an extension?
If the applicant is asking, to look at new language, I would ask for an extension then till March 10th.
Okay, is that acceptable?
Is that acceptable, Wayne?
Yes.
Okay, so motion to extend to March 10th.
Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
And Christine, we'll reach out to you and try to get some language and have Stan and I review it with you.
That's
Okay?
great. Yep,
Thank you.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the next one. I have the next one, 148 Priscilla.
Priscilla, right.
Bear with me.
This was not marked action deadline, is it, Anthony? Anthony?
Oh, yeah, I should have marked it. Sorry about that.
So it's on action deadline. Okay.
Yep. So you might recall, this is on Priscilla Avenue. We've done a few subdivisions in this neighborhood. Oops. So basically, it was recreating two lots that had been there previously. Actually, the subdivision initially was a lot in the front and then the flag lot in the back. But there's some off-site wetlands here. So what we did was we created two side-by-side lots instead, rather than shifting a house all the way back here. Better protects the wetlands. So they got the relief from the zoning board to create the two lots that used to be there. Like I said, there's off-site wetlands, nothing on site. Actually all of the improvements that they're proposing are over 200 feet from the wetlands. So basically outside of the jurisdiction, but some of the property does obviously fall within the buffer requirements. So I've included all the setbacks, wetland setbacks in the resolution, but this is what the subdivision looks like, two lots. And then all this back here gets basically protected from the wetlands. So it was a pretty good plan. So we did a conditional resolution. This project did get relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals to recreate the two lots. So that was done in 2020. Let me just, it's pretty straightforward. This was a type 2 action under secret and no further environmental review. Although it is in the archaeological sensitive area and we did have a report done. Actually, it's stated findings, it's type 2 action, but it is an archaeological. The report was done. I just have to put the date of the report in there. I just forgot to do it when I did the resolution, so I'll add that in. Let's see here. The application was deemed complete. We had a 30-day written comment period with no hearing. No comments were received. Did a pre-application report for this in 2019, and the map is in agreement with that report. The project received health department approval on October 1st of 2021. The property is part of the subdivision of Riverside Gardens Section 2, which was filed, that's a spelling error there, in 1944. So the county may require the abandonment of the underlying map. So we put that in there. No workforce housing requirement. And the park fee will be, or the park requirement will be satisfied with a fee. I believe it's still $2,500. Engineer just gave a 3-inch rainfall covenant. So we've included that. I have to put the date of the fire prevention memo in there, but they had no further fire protection devices as a property served public water and hydrants. The Conservation Board indicated the wetland setbacks, which we've incorporated into the approval for this. So that's been addressed. And the IA systems obviously are requirements now. Let's see here. Trails Advisory Board indicated that no trail implications. And we didn't get any comments from the Health Department, CAC, or the Fire District. So just some of the conditions for the 2-lot subdivision approval. No map changes are necessary. The applicant had made the map, the submitted maps, and then went ahead and made the map changes that I needed and submitted Mylar. So all the wetland setbacks and everything are on the map, so we don't have to worry about that. Payment of the fee, $2,500.
Anthony, I'm sorry. What are the size of the lots now?
The lots they're undersized, so they will be, just bear with me, I'm sorry. Okay, so just under 15 each, 14 and change each.
So 2 relatively small homes.
Yep, 2 small homes.
Anthony, do we want to put a limiting fence there to?
It's in the resolution, so I'll get to that. I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay, good.
So where was that? Okay, so the covenants and restrictions, standard ones, no further subdivision, no lot line changes, no overhead utility lines, the 3-inch rainfall. Lots 1 and 2 are subject to a naturally vegetated buffer which extends 100 feet from the off-site wetlands. It's shown on the map, and I do indicate to be delineated with a split rail fence. So that's in there.
Perfect.
The The Conservation Board noted that the property previously had nursery stock planted on there. And they were recommending that any of the nursery stock that's been, growing over the years just be removed within that 100-foot buffer. But I've been to the property. It's pretty clear back there. There's not a lot. I don't want to start ripping up vegetation. I'd rather just leave it and let it just grow naturally, which I think is fine. And then the other standard requirements in the buffers, no structures, no removing soil, no removing of any vegetation, no dumping. So all that's been included. 125-foot setback for structures, including driveways, decks, patios. Minimum of 150 feet for septic systems. And again, they meet all the requirements because they're showing everything over 200 feet. But these are the minimum requirements. I always put them in the, I know that we don't have to do it anymore, but I've been putting in the IA system covenant in there just because we usually do. The leaders and gutters as it relates to runoff, which is always part of the wetlands permits. Same thing with project limiting fence, which will be installed prior to the construction commencing. And then the compliance with the driveway standards of the town, submission of a mortgage consent if applicable, along with the title certification, certificate of abandonment for the underlying subdivision map if it's required by the county, town attorney approval of all legal documents, and then, well, we actually had the 4 Mylars and 10 paper prints, and then signature of the maps and filing of the maps.
Thanks, Anthony. Any discussion on this? Any questions?
The applicants, but I spoke to the applicant today. They're on board with everything.
Okay. Now a motion to accept the report.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Robin. All in favor? Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Thank you. Thanks, Anthony. Number Reigler is off the agenda, number 4. So that goes into number 5, Jackie Broda.
Yes, I just spoke with the applicant's representative, and since this has kind of a complicated legal history, we discussed and agreed, and he consented to an extension until April 14th, so I can bring Christine up to speed on everything.
Great. So,
So we do need, if you could, it's not the action deadline, but he was consenting to the extension being considered today, so I can draft a resolution for that.
motion to extend it to April 14th by Dennis, second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? So 7 in favor.
Thank you.
Claire? Is Claire here?
I could locate her.
I see a blank thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on then to Pulcinelli Management. Jackie, you want to take that, number 7?
Yes, if Charles could please let in Danielle Pulcinelli, and I believe her father might be in attendance too. And then the leasee, I think, would be Marcos Ribeiro. I don't know if he's available for today's meeting.
Yeah, they're coming in.
Thank you.
And we got your updated report, Jackie, today.
Thank you. Good. I'm glad you guys got that. So let me just, can everyone see the shared screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is like an overview of the whole property because it does extend to the north, but you can see this middle red strip. This is their property as well, although they are not planning to disturb any of the area in here. They're planning, this is, you can see maybe this lighter brown is the area that has already been disturbed. That's approximately 4 acres. And then they're proposing to disturb this portion and kind of inconsistent with the existing house. So I just wanted to give you the overview so everyone can see that we are close to, the railroad, the light industrial over here. This is a subject property. We've got the Hickory Bend subdivision right here. And then we've got existing residences to the north and Montauk Highway right here to the south. So this is a little more zoomed in, so you can see the property configurations. There is an existing, vehicle storage facility here. This is the terminus of the LI 40 zoning, and the rest is R40, including this subject property.
So Jackie, you're suggesting that you move most of the use to the, I'm going to say left because I'm not sure which is east and west.
Yeah, this would be west, to the left or west. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, as you can see, I mean, we can get into that, but as you can see, this is a well-established residential community. One of the objectives when I was looking at this is, normally we have an existing farm like this, and then possibly wooded or undisturbed lot, which is being considered for subdivision. There's usually not an ability to separate these uses. And we know that there can be a nuisance to residences as well as, complaints of the farmers when they're doing their farming, general farming operations, spraying, dust, noise, et cetera. So in this rare instance, when we're establishing a new farming use, one of the things I was looking at is because their site plan does show disturbance and farming of this area, maybe because even with the disturbance pattern that existed prior to them coming to this board, this does have approximately over like 100, 120 feet that they've currently left undisturbed. And, what a better way to look at this is to be, well, maybe we shouldn't have this area be farmed. Maybe we should shift it all towards this area where, I highly doubt an LI 40 industrial use, as well as a car storage facility, would be disturbed by a routine tractor or maintenance or storage farm. So, and then also with our larger objectives for stormwater control, buffering, this gently slopes towards the Spionk River. So that's why I kind of wanted to show you guys the zoomed out. So this is the headwaters of the Spionk River. And then these are actually considered two ponds. I'm forgetting the names offhand right now, but why not use this as a natural filtration and not look at disturbing the entire eastern boundary of this? And it's rare that we get to look at a property that has frontages on Old Country Road and essentially has access all the way down to Montauk Highway. So I'll get kind of more into the nuts and bolts of it. But if you can see here, maybe I can zoom in a little bit better. If you can see this area, this is really the area of disturbance. So this like erosion control fence is essentially showing, so this is already an orchard. This is the existing two residences. And so what they're showing is they would like to disturb, let me just move this a little bit. They would like to disturb up here and then down and then here. Although we did get testimony from, I think, the farmer who's going to lease the property that he didn't intend to touch the trees over here, but some might have been useful as for sale firewood. But I think we could accomplish a decent sized buffer here. 100 foot would be, what I would recommend in a perfect world. So we can discuss that and consider that further, but why not have, and I looked at the quality of soils, the soils are all good. So all the soils are prime agricultural soils, as well as some of farmland of statewide importance. But let's move some of the, disturbance that would impact these existing homes. Let's see if we can just farm here, because it really would not cause a nuisance to the surrounding industrial uses and pre-existing commercial uses. So I'll get kind of more to the report.
Excuse me, Jackie,
Sure.
there are homes along the access road. If you look in the, I guess it would be the northwest corner, there's a home there.
Here?
So,
Or there?
at the disturbance, I'm pointing to the screen, Liz, if you could see what I'm pointing at.
Here? Up here?
Yeah, where it says Ellie Wesner.
Ellie Wesner, yes, yeah.
Right, there are
Yeah.
homes there. I'd like to somehow, make this as, the least impactful upon those homes as possible.
Sure, yeah, and Craig, I mean, they are not proposing to disturb this area here, which would be a bigger disturbance in my opinion. There actually is this small town park right here. So one of the other things that, if we can do it, I think it would be great. I'm not sure if it's completely feasible, but I was asking for a 20-foot strip to basically kind of go around this, to be dedicated and to establish a walking path. When I was doing my research, Jagger Path, it was interesting. Jagger Path actually used to come up here and then come out, and I'm not pointing directly, but basically this was an old path that people used to use. And it was more so over the L.E. Wesner subdivision, which I have a copy of. But essentially it used to bisect somewhere around here, come out to North Phillips, and then it used to kind of meander down to Jagger Path and Montauk Highway. It was kind of an informal dirt road. The L.E. Wesner subdivision actually essentially had the old north and south boundary, but that was one of my recommendations, is that the houses, they have encroached, so the houses will have to remove their encroachments, but why not look at establishing a 20-foot? We could then connect this town park that we created by the L.E. Wesner subdivision and then hook it along east-west to this subdivision, where this also, the old Jagger Path also kind of came this way across too. And I believe actually you can see the old path on this subdivision as well. So why not try to reestablish a historic pedestrian access? And deed it to the town and hopefully have no conflict to the farmer, buffer these residences, and then connect with good planning objectives, these two kind of standalone open spaces that we have from these two separate subdivisions. So I was going to get to that later on, but figure good question. And I was trying to speak to a minimal approach. And then one of the other things, Craig, was to limit or prohibit any vehicular access for the farm to the north. So that we wouldn't impact these existing residences, so that all the commercial traffic would be coming down to Montauk Highway.
Good, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. So as the first part, this is really just a description. So they are trying to establish a new flower farm. It would disturb 9.3516 acres. This just has the basic description, as well as the information regarding the subdivisions and filing date for the L.E. Wesner, which is in 1997, and then also the subdivision map of Hickory Bend, which was in 1996. So I'll go over this simply and I'll just paraphrase. This is basically an application before us because they're proposing over 2,000 square feet of disturbance and land disturbance and clearing. So that captures it within 330-84 A1A. And then I wanted to make clear that the town of Southampton is a right to farm town, although the right to farm really applies to existing established farming. So we're creating a new farming parcel here. So this is why they are before us. Also, the property has received violations, which I've been informed by the applicant they are working to rectify, if not have rectified the on-site ones. And then part of the violation is that they need to come to us for the establishment of this new use in a residential area. So I have it here regarding that. So next, these are the violations. So I was consulting with the town attorney's office and Sean Cambridge. He is the one who has this within the justice court. So these are all the formal violations that were issued. And the triggering was also that they need permits and approval from the planning board for the disturbance that was done. I believe it was last winter. Here
to get the agricultural, when do they go back to the county?
For the agricultural district?
Yes.
The applicant might speak to that. I'm not sure. They have submissions in March. I don't believe the site plan approval will be done by March. So the applicant is planning to reapply for that. But again, we haven't established the use yet. So we do have to talk about that timing, but they're trying to now rectify the situation and move forward with the proper approval.
I'm just confused to the process. I know that there's some things in court and they've been denied at the county to get this agricultural designation.
I think the county is waiting to see the planning board's response. So I was going to, once we review this, I was going to forward this report to Suffolk County for their consideration so that they understand what the process is. I think it's up to them whether they're admitted into the ag district. But I know we want to get it squared away with site plan approval, as quickly as possible so that they can establish the new use and then, ask for to be admitted into the ag district. So this is basically the first step of authorizing the use.
Okay. Go on, Jackie.
Okay, so number 5 is that this is an unlisted action. So we looked at this thoroughly. What happens is because it is under 10 acres, but it is very close to the 10-acre threshold, and because of the sensitivity and the existing woodlands and the impact to town lands adjacent, this is classified as an unlisted action. I did want to formally put in there that if they do exceed the 9.3 acres or exceed 10 acres, this would then be considered a type 1 action, which is a listed type 1 action under SECRA in the SECRA handbook. But right now it's unlisted, so we will be doing a SECRA, and we are going to coordinate with the Suffolk County CEQ, so that the way they're aware of our pending action and can make comments at that time. So that might actually, Robin, that might actually help with clarity on their issue and what their review is currently. This is also the part that I was getting to with Craig and his question to likely consider limiting vehicle access and basically only having it from the south via Montauk Highway and prohibit the access to Old Country Road, reducing the commercial driveway impacts to those neighboring residences to the north. Because we do have to understand these are existing established residences that are now going to be affected by this new use. Then this is 7. This is my recommendation, general recommendation to shift the disturbance to the west. To minimize the disturbance to the east and because we also did receive public comments and just essentially shifted away. I am recommending 100 feet. Although we can consider the amount formally at the formal application stage. But I found that 100 feet really provides a substantial buffer. You know, it would catch any erosion control or any excess stormwater as the property does gently slope that way. And we all know what happens with a farm field, you know, in the winter, you know, there's not much to catch that rain or even that melting snow. So I was proposing 100 feet. But we can discuss that further, but also thinking, you know, in terms of water quality and this being used for farm operation, you know, there's always the potential for pesticides, fertilizer dependent vegetation. And if we could impose this buffer, this natural buffer area could act as a natural stormwater filtration. So, you know, hopefully lessening or reducing the impacts to the Spionk River, those ponds, and Murriches Bay, which is an impaired water body. So that is basically 7 and 8. 9, I just wanted to state that the whole property is prime ag soils, and then there is that northwestern portion of statewide farmland of statewide importance. So it is conducive to farming based upon the information received in GIS, but we're just asking for a little bit more detail on the soils so we can review that at the site plan stage. And I thought it was very interesting because, you know, I don't have every soil memorized, but this is Riverhead Sandy Loam at 0 to 3%. So it's not a steep grade and it does drain well, but it's interesting to say that they have a classification that for septic absorption, it is somewhat limited. So let's see here. And then there was some information about harvesting the wood. You know, there is a type of silviculture, which is a harvesting, which is basically selecting wood that is good for harvesting, but then replanting and managing kind of like more of a wood harvesting operation. I don't think the applicant is proposing that, but I was looking at the DEC definition and, you know, what they're proposing really doesn't meet the definition of silviculture, which is another type of agricultural use. But he is looking to clear cut the property to establish a new, you know, farming use here. So that's the gist of 10. 11 is related to that if they are harvesting any wood, that this board be aware of that and just, you know, what they intend to do. But there is oak wilt within Suffolk County that the New York State DEC commissioner has designated it a protective zone. So if there is any wood from this site, it can only be sold within Suffolk County and it cannot be sold outside. So we're just asking that the applicant be aware of that and comply with those regulations so that they're aware. You know, and just as we discussed before, there are some public and safety impacts related to a large amount of land disturbance and fertilizers and pesticides and impacts that are customary to farming. So we're just asking that we properly look at the erosion control. And I was discussing with the applicant this morning that we should have a coordinated meeting with the engineering division so that we understand what they're looking for in regards to erosion control and access for the property. So moving on to 13, we just wanted some clarification of the actual on-site farming use. So is there going to be material storage? How many trucks? How are we going to transport the flowers? So that's just more, you know, specific business practices that we want to understand what they'll be needing to do. So that way we can, have a clear picture of what the use will have and the impacts. So that's number 13. 14, if this is applicable, we're asking for any information where they may consider, or if they're going to consider at this point, a farm stand, just so the planning board can know how that would impact the overall use of the property. There is a separate permit process that doesn't come to the planning board for temporary seasonal farm stand permits, which is from the fire marshal's office. And if you look at that code regulation, it's really making sure that there's proper area for offsite parking off the right of way, and that those structures are temporary and that they be taken, off the site when the farm stand is not in season. So that's just kind of like a heads up. If you're planning on a farm stand, consider where and show it to the planning board at the site plan application stage. 15 is just a little bit more information. Like to see the legal rights for the southern driveway. If we are going to focus most of the commercial traffic to the south, just give us the legal documents. It might be by deed. Again, this is a historic right-of-way situation. So just want to make sure we have that on the formal record so we can review that with the town attorney's office. 16 is the, I sit with the Trails Advisory Board sometimes, and, I think this really could link those two separate open spaces that the planning board achieved in the mid to late 90s, and might be a real benefit to this project because, it's very rare that we get a property that, owns properties contiguous, and maybe we could get a nice, almost a reestablished jogger path, but just as a pedestrian walking trail to get people down to the hamlet center without walking on the road or having to utilize a car. And then this is just 17 is just to rectify the violations. The applicant is here so they can speak to the violations. The last thing I just wanted to show you was this is the Hickory Bend map. So this is actually the strip here. So Posinelli property is right here. So it would just be a small connection along the north that would connect to these and provide a wildlife corridor as well as possible pedestrian trail. And then this you can see is kind of like the old path of Jagger Path, which was the Ellie subdivision. And so what was done is they have like right here, they have like a buffer that was here. And then you can see it's kind of hard to see, but we actually have this small 1,200 square foot strip right here. So this is actually dedicated parkland to the town, but right now it's just hanging out there. So what my proposal was to kind of have a 20-foot strip, provide some separation and a pedestrian walking trail. So continue down this western boundary here. We could meet up then with this town park and then continue it to the west to Hickory Bend. So I have a little aerial where I showed, this green could be the possible 20-foot wide strip, which would then connect to the green park here from the Ellie Wesner, and then continue and connect to the Hickory Bend subdivision open space here, and possibly get people out to Montauk Highway, where we all know this, Village Square here. And then we've got the new Spionk, affordable housing project and the train station right there. Oh, and I did want to remind the planning board. So officially, I've gotten comments on this too, but also personally, some friends who live in the Remsenburg area, a lot of the residents on Matthews Drive and beyond actually are utilizing the estates at Remsenburg open space to get down and walk to the bay. So I just wanted to tell the planning board that this is actually a possibility where we could get a pedestrian walking trail, some open space and separation, but allow residents from the north here to get all the way down to the bay.
It's a great route. I go through walks and runs when I have time.
Yeah, and it's just nice
great.
because a lot of times we're planning for this neighborhood open strip and maybe it's not utilized. In this case, professionally and personally, I have been told how it's a great walk to come down here. And it just so happens that this historic Jagger Path, look, it's like directly across the street on Montauk Highway, and how we could give that opportunity to residents to the north would be great.
It utilizes the roads though in the states of Remsenburg, right? It's
No, they utilize this light green open space, Dennis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they come down Matthews Drive. Yeah, and you might recall this is like old growth forest, which was never disturbed. So we have a strip of open space, this light green here, and then they continue and walk down this way.
Oh.
And then they get down to the dead end roads and get to the bay. So a planning objective where we actually succeeded.
Jackie,
Yes.
question for you. The where they're crossing the Long Island Railroad tracks.
Yep.
That's that
Right here.
area.
Mhm.
I assume that's an at-grade crossing.
It
Do you
is an
know
at-grade crossing.
Is it protected? Are there gates? Are there, red flashing lights? The reason I ask is that,
Right here.
yeah, do you know if there are gates there and lights and all that stuff? Because I was involved in 2 or 3 cases while I was at the town of Long Island Railroad trying to close those private crossings because of the safety aspect. So
Yeah.
they were either having gates put in or getting them, closed through, legal action.
Yeah. I mean, you can see that this use depends on it. This use doesn't necessarily need it because you have the, but they just have joint ownership here. These are technically separate properties, these two. This is split by a school district line. But what I was planning to do and hopefully coordinate with the engineering division is go out there and really see the condition of that access. I did do kind of like a general drive-by, but I wasn't able to go into the site. So I was actually on the northern portion and just getting my bearings on Old Country Road. But I'd like to actually, and I was discussing this with the applicant today, I'd like to go out there so that they have an understanding and engineering and I can take a look at the existing improvements and then make recommendations based upon what's actually there.
Right.
So we'd like
there's a legal process to close those crossings. And like I said, I was involved with the town attorney's office in a couple. It may be that they got approval to keep it open if it doesn't have the gates and the lights and everything. But certainly wouldn't want to, kind of encourage and direct people to go to a crossing that may end up in court, trying to get closed.
Yeah, so I can explore that further. That is a very good point. And Tom, if you have any idea who we would refer that topic to, who would be a good person or a point of contact to make sure, because we can refer the site plan to them at the formal application stage. We don't refer pre-submissions. We kind of outline the reports and say like what you need to do and then come back. So I'd be happy to refer that to the proper agency when the site plan comes in.
Okay, I can try to get you a couple of names.
Yeah, if you have any, just point me in the right direction and then I'll take it from there.
Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah.
Jackie, I know that, I'm sorry, I know that through traffic will be rather light coming out that site, but we just need to be mindful that you have Nigel Avenue there connecting with Montauk Highway. You have Matthews there connecting with Montauk Highway. And, in the event that people come to Montauk Highway at the same time, it could lead to a little bit of, left turn, right turn chaos. I just think I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
No, when it gets closer, we should, just be a little bit, just have a discussion about it and make sure we're doing the right thing.
Not to mention Beyond Lumber. Beyond Lumber right there, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's Beyond Lumber as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Can I make a comment on this, Jackie?
And I have one question, please, before we get into that. Yep. Jackie, at the end of number 10, clear cutting of timber or native woodlands for sale is not considered a permitted activity pursuant to zoning. So at the public hearing, there was some comment made that timber would be harvested and sold. There was some discussion about a habitat for the long-eared bat. I don't see any of that in number 10. It's just missing.
Yeah, you know what, Jackie, I actually had a little, I must have in a copy and paste error, there was a little blurb about the northern long-eared bat. So that was actually the one thing I wanted to add, that they'll have to comply with the New York State DEC long-eared bat, which we're now familiar with, or more familiar with, is that they can't do active cutting during, I think it is March through November. So they would only be able to accomplish the additional clearing through the winter months so that they don't impact that species.
Right. Also, I remember Janice mentioning at the meeting that they should really submit a clearing plan for us, an inventory of what's going to be taken.
Yes.
And the species. So can you add that as well?
Yeah, so I'll add a separate thing about the northern long-eared bat. I'll put that, do you mind if I put that after 11 as its own issue? Because we have the oak wilt kind of goes in with that. I will ask them to give us a little bit more information, and the applicant is actually here, so maybe she can clarify some of the wood removal issues.
Sure, I'd be happy to speak on it. There are a few things that I wanted to address also. First, if you wanted to talk about the woodland clearing, we do, in terms of the DEC, it is up until February 28th, I believe, that we're able to clear. We're not anticipating clearing, obviously, this year, anything. And we do have trees that are still fallen, as we do have a stop work order that we weren't allowed to clear. So in terms of clearing in the future, that's definitely something we could get more information to you regarding a clearing plan or whatever you require before we clear additional trees. Just to touch on the access for the railroad, for a very long time they did not have the gates and the lights and the clearing, but now they do. So it seems to be it was addressed by the town. So it seems that something that is important, especially if we're having Jagger Path as a cross.
Thank you.
And then, of course, and then with the violations, so the majority
sorry, Danielle, you were breaking up.
Actually for the two small copies. Can you hear me?
No, Danielle, you're breaking up. We can't hear what you were just saying.
So sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Sorry about that. So regarding the violations on the property, the majority of the violations were in regards to the two cottages that are on the property. I've since been able to secure the pre-existing certificates of occupancy, which have basically worked towards clearing those violations as well as any on-site violations. What we really need now is approval from the town to make sure that all of the farming operation is approved. So that's basically what we're looking for right now.
So most of the litter and the vehicle storage and all of that has been rectified already on
Yes.
site.
Sorry, go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you guys, the planning board, know that this is scheduled to be considered again for a pretrial conference on June 17th, 2022. That is because the town attorney's office and justice court is waiting to see the result of the planning board review. So they are giving us essentially time to review this formally, hold a hearing, and offer our comments and recommendations formally. So I will make those changes and I will add that there are lights and at-grade gates. That is very helpful. Thank you, Danielle. And then as we discussed, I think it'll be very important to do a site inspection, hopefully coordinate that with the engineering division so that you guys understand what kind of improvements, drainage, to kind of make sure that we have everything safe and, accommodate stormwater runoff. And then I will add the northern long-eared bat. I apologize, that was probably just a copy and paste when I was editing the order.
And also you're going to add requiring a clearing plan, what size trees, what
Yep.
species, et cetera.
Yep, I'll ask for that. I'll add that to 10, Jackie.
Jackie,
Yes.
I just want to point out, we do have a trail easement across the north side of the industrial park that goes all the way out to Phillips Avenue. So
So that could kind of link in possibly up here.
we could have an east-west trail and we could have one that goes out north to Old Country Road. Yeah, that blue area there, that's a trail easement.
Yeah, Dave, actually, I remember that. I think I saw that when I was working on this industrial building right here.
Yep.
This is a buffer and trail easement.
Correct.
So we could possibly coordinate and get, almost essentially it's like reestablishing what the historic path of Jagger Path was. In looking at historic documents, I don't have the aerial here, but I can provide it to you for the site plan review. But really it came out here and then it went up and then it kind of went down and, there's an old road here, but it continued also this way too. So it'd kind of be interesting to reestablish what was a historic, probably vehicular, but do it in a pedestrian way to, reach town objectives, and get people to the hamlet safely. Who was that? Sorry.
This is Marcos Rivero. I'm actually the leasee that will be farming the parcel. And I just wanted to make a comment about the proposed trail. So once the farm is actively being farmed, at any one time, there could be hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment there. And what we have had in the past is when there is easy access to the farm, or if there's pedestrian traffic, we've had issues with people tampering with our equipment and so things like that. So I just wanted to bring that up as a comment.
Okay. Do you plan to have some kind of shed for the equipment, or are you just going to leave it out in the open?
No, for right now, we have no proposed structures and no proposed farm stand either.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that concern. We can consider that at the site plan review.
Do you think in the future you would put a agricultural fence around the property?
Honestly, another comment that I would make is that part of Harold's 8-foot fence that is there would be very beneficial to preventing some of that deer traffic. So not proposing anything now, but to be able to utilize part of his fence would be beneficial overall.
What do you mean by Harold's existing fence?
He has an existing, so on that northern boundary, there's an existing
Here?
8-foot wire fence there.
Okay.
And obviously, because there's a large deer problem there, and right now the wildlife do have a access, I would call it. Okay. So depending upon how that goes, we would like to actually stop some of that traffic from flowing from east to west.
Okay, so it's more like here.
Correct. Well, it's all over the property. They travel north-south. They use any sort of access, but since Harold does have that fence there, they do hit his fence and then they'll travel to the west or to the east and then to the north.
Okay. I think once the planning board reviews this too, I mean, once this is approved, or when approved, we can consider an appropriate configuration of ag fencing with the formal site plan. So, sometimes I know you might not want to do it now, but we could approve the location and then have it as be a phase 2. So that way you can come back and say, I want to implement the fencing at this time, and you can show us which sections essentially, but I can review that with you guys both, and we can coordinate that on the formal site plan review.
Understood.
Okay, so Jackie, are you sending this report down to Sean in Justice Court, and
yeah,
are you sending it? And are you sending it to the ag?
Suffolk County Ag District.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So I'll make those changes, and then if the board is amenable, we can adopt it with those changes, and then I'll forward it to all the necessary offices.
So, any other comments?
You just wanted to add one thing.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add one thing. The agricultural district, to apply for the agricultural district, we could start from March 1st. I know that was a question.
So your plan is to reapply as of March 1st?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to coordinate. They had actually emailed asking about the status with the town. So as a courtesy, I'm going to email them the adopted report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jackie, one question I have regarding site inspection. You said you wanted to walk the site. Do you have any idea in terms of timing when you're looking to do that?
I was actually going to coordinate with you both so that and talk to engineering, because I think it would be very productive to have engineering walk with me. So that way you guys have an understanding of what we would be looking for to, make sure we have safe access and can catch some of the stormwater and some appropriate drainage. So I will contact you separately.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll have a drainage management plan, Jackie, involved.
Yep,
okay.
exactly.
I also wanted to bring up another comment that since how do I say this? Since none of the, we are disturbing the existing soil conditions, yes, but we're not planning to pave any of it or make it impermeable to water filtering through the soil. So in my previous experience is that there's not much that will change in terms of water movement down into the soil below.
I'm sorry, who's speaking? I just was trying to.
The
That's
last
Marcos
section.
Rivera.
That was
Okay.
Mark. Oh, sorry, Marcos. I couldn't see you on my screen. I was trying to scroll. Yeah, we'll look at that. And I think if we can establish that buffer on the eastern side, I think that would also help it too, to show that the watershed is moving that way. So maybe we don't need drainage in that area, but we do have to look at the condition of the asphalt surfaces and make sure we basically bring it to code, because it looks like a historic situation and we want to make sure that there is proper drainage so we don't have any stormwater runoff onto separate parcels. Okay.
Okay. So are we ready to adopt this report as amended? And I have a motion. Motion by Gloria and second by Robin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Claire, you ready for the retaining?
Yeah, Martin Petrovic, related to the groundwater management plan that's been submitted related to Lewis Road. So this would be to hire Mr. Petrovic, and we've got the monitoring plan, and he'll come back to you with his review, and this would not in any way like give permission for anything before any action is taken related to this. It would come back to you for review and approval.
Right. And Claire, if we wanted to just have a session with him on the planning board, to understand the report, is he willing to do that? Because I couldn't remember if there was an estimate. There was no estimate involved.
This is an estimate. It's just for the review. And if after that you would like him to attend, of course, we're resuming, it'll probably cost a little less money, but he does say $3,000. We'll know that. And then, yes, we can have him come talk to you. You think you'd want to have him speak to you about
We always like
plan
that.
beforehand?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that should be built into the contract.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, let's do this step first. I'll speak to the applicant's representative. I think they'll be fine with that, because for you to understand this, because you didn't review that aspect of the plan initially, it probably makes sense. But let me speak to the applicant and we'll bring it back on. If there's additional monies, then we'll add to this.
Wayne is saying fine. Yeah.
Does it have to go to the Pine Barrens also?
Yes, that thumbs up.
Does this
I'm
plan,
sorry.
does this plan have to go to the Pine Barrens also, since they did have an issue about clearing?
The clearing related to the groundwater management plan would absolutely have to go to the Pine Barrens. The groundwater management plan itself, I'm a little bit fuzzy on that. Can I get back to you on that?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we check all the boxes in the right order.
So this is for the monitoring, the groundwater monitoring, Petrovic. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So let's do this step first. I'll be back. If you want to meet with him, we'll be back with additional monies that'll be required for that, okay?
And you'll check if we need approval of Pine Barrens.
Can't we just roll it into one thing as opposed to doing it again and bringing it on?
This is not the first rodeo. This is not, there's going to be other steps. We're going to be doing other things on this project. So let's do one step at a time. Because if it's Zoom, again, it might be $1,000, and then it's in person, which we'll know hopefully in the next month or so, it's going to be $3,000. So let's just go from there. Okay.
I did hear there's some that maybe we would be back live in March, but I don't know what everybody's heard. Okay, motion to accept this groundwater Petrovic by George, second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Anthony, let's go to Jet Cab. Anthony, you're muted. Anthony, you're muted. There you go. No, there you are. Okay.
Yep, sorry about that. Two lot subdivision of the subject property here, head of Pond Road. It's in the CR 60 zoning district. This would normally be a type 2 action, but it's in the ag overlay district, so that makes the application a type 1 action. You could see here, this would be the 2 lot subdivision, 2 larger lots with a common driveway. I would also point out, just so you know, that as part of this application, in addition to the common driveway to serve the 2 lots in the subdivision, I believe the property owner also owns these properties, and their access off ahead of pond will be eliminated, and there'll be a common. They'll be using the common driveway as well. So we got some elimination of some curb cuts on this, which was pretty good. So basically, this is just for the SEQR review because it was a type 1 action. So I went through the full EAF form because it's type 1. No significant impacts on land. Result in 1 additional lot. No impact on geological features. None have been identified. No surface waters in this case. Groundwater, again, it's
How about the archaeological review? That's
what's that?
impact. Go back up to 3. Oh, geologic features. Well, I don't know.
Geologic features. Let me just,
Where does archaeological review come under? Cultural?
Yes, but the study was done, so nothing came back.
All right, but I think you just want to put that in the report.
Yeah, I'll put that in there. We'll get to that one. Impact on flooding, no. Air, no. Plants and animals, the property is largely clear cut. Impact on agricultural resources, I just put yes. It would be minor. The property is prime ag soils, but there's already a residence being constructed. It's not adjacent to any additional ag land that would create a large contiguous block, so the impacts wouldn't be significant. Plus, the property is not being farmed anymore. Impact on aesthetic resources was no. And historic and archaeological resources is no, and I will put a note in there about the archaeological report not identifying any.
Please, yes.
Yep, sorry about that. No impact on open space and recreational resources. The property is not CPF identified. It's not a critical environmental area. No major impacts on transportation. Actually, it's making it better because it's taking 2 additional properties and doing a common driveway. No impacts on energy. No impacts as it relates to noise, odor, and light. No impact on human health. Consistent with the community plans. It conforms to zoning in every respect. It's a residential subdivision within the residential zone, so it seems to be consistent with community character. So for those reasons, I believe a neg deck could be issued. And that's all I have for that.
Okay, any questions? We adopt a negative declaration. Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
7 in favor. Thank you, Anthony. Dave, historic windmill. Look here.
Oh,
I
Can you
do
see my
love
screen?
your duck, Dave.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
I shared screen?
It's
John
very
Adams
large.
Dick, yes.
Yes, okay. So the town received an application from the West Hampton Beach Village for a landmark designation of the John Adams Dix Windmill, which is located in West Hampton Beach. It was constructed approximately 1870. The windmill is proposed to be donated to the village and on the condition that it be relocated. The property owners right now have demolished the house that was connected to the windmill, and they've preserved the windmill so that it could be moved, but they are in the process of constructing a new dwelling on that property. And the village of West Hampton Beach was interested in trying to preserve it and move it to the Great Lawn, which is a CPF property in the village of West Hampton Beach that's owned jointly by the village and the town. The village does not have a landmarks code, so they've asked the town to landmark it or to consider landmarking it, which is a requirement for buildings to use CPF money for renovation. They have to be landmarked. And it also would be a condition of moving it onto CPF property. The town and the village are discussing an IMA that would allow the town to landmark a property that's in the village. And the Landmarks Board has recommended landmarking, and a public hearing has been set by the town board for March 8th. I've prepared a few slides here. I know you received all of this information, but these are just some photographs, or not photographs, paintings and photograph of John Adams Dix with some background on his history with the Civil War. He was the governor of New York State from 1873 to 1874. This was his house that he built in 1870. And in the background, you can see this photo was taken in 1915. But in the background, just beyond these trees, if I were to zoom in, you can just barely make out the cap on the windmill there. The windmill survived the 1938 hurricane, and surprisingly, even the arms seem to have survived, whereas other nearby buildings were pretty much destroyed. In 1953, the property owner did some renovation on the sails. This is while they were doing the construction, and this is afterwards. This is an aerial oblique that shows what the house and the windmill looked like in approximately 2021. I believe most of the structure has been demolished, and the property owners are building a new house in this location, and the windmill doesn't fit into what they're proposing for their house. So fortunately, they've offered to donate it to the village at no cost. The village would pay for the expenses of moving it to the Great Lawn. The CPF funds cannot be used for relocating it, but if it were landmarked, the CPF money could be used to restore it. This is what the mill and the house looked like in 2021. By this date, the sails had been taken off. This is looking at it. This was the view that you could see from the nearby street, and this was the view of the mill from behind the house, looking towards the street. The windmill presently is on this property right here, and they're proposing to relocate it to the Great Lawn on the west end of Main Street. So that's it. You have a resolution in your package if you agree that this property should be landmarked. As I said, the town and the village are working on an intermunicipal agreement that would allow the town to actually impose landmark restrictions on a property that's outside of the township. And that seems to be moving along fairly well. So if you have any questions.
It's always a win-win for these kinds of applications, David, I think.
Agree.
Okay.
And when it's landmarked, CPF money, which we have a plethora of, can help restore it, so.
That's correct.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the resolution by Gloria and second by Robin, all in favor? Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Thank you, David. Nice
Thank
little
you.
history lesson. Michael, is this the, do you have two things, or is this the Stony Brook windmill?
I have two things. I know we're kind of feeling windmills right now, but up first is the town code amendment regarding the incorporated review by the town engineering division and chapter 243 and chapter 33053. So as you're aware, typically these referrals, we go to the engineering department on the regular, and that's what we currently do. And when they are doing a review, they're looking at the grading, the slopes, the drainage, topography, road contours, anticipated tributary areas. And over time, this is a comprehensive review, and it ensures that there's appropriate road and drainage plans that are designed and implemented. So the purpose of this local law is to recognize that the comprehensive review that is currently required is being done and codified. So I have, actually, I'm going to quickly just share my screen. You know, when you have so many things on your screen trying to share, you never know what you're going to end up showing. Okay, here we go. So it's, if you see here on letter A, we're adding an engineering division. So typically goes to the planning board as well as now the engineering division for subsection 4. And then I believe at the bottom here, we have a subsequent amendment Letter C. So yes, being approved by the planning board, and in this case, also the engineering division. I brought on Tom Houghton, who's joined us, who can discuss this in a little bit more detail if you would like, but we're here to take your comments, and I can relay those to the town board. Oh, and we have a third one at the bottom here.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that engineering is involved in the old file maps. Absolutely.
Could you just back up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, give me one moment.
And just, every time we do an application, it seems like the planning board gets input from engineering. So why is this necessary and what's different?
Well, it's necessary because that might be our standard operating procedure, but it's not codified.
Okay.
So, and Tom, again, you're welcome to chime in, but this is putting it in the code, so one can't question why we're adding additional costs or why we're doing this step to begin with. Now it's in the code. But Tom,
hi everyone, Tom Horton, town engineer. So Gloria, the typical procedure during subdivision and site plan reviews, which is codified, is that engineering is a referral from the planning department. In this specific case, in the old filed map code, it says nothing about the engineering department. So even though we typically do the reviews and we love to provide comments in order to make sure that these roads, which typically are substantial in size, meet town standards and are safe for the town residents who would be buying lots off of those roads, we would like to be able to continue to do that and to eventually tailor our fee schedule to reflect the significant amount of time and effort that goes into reviewing these plans.
Thank you.
And would the engineering approval be required in conjunction with the planning board approval?
No, so it's a referral. So we provide our comments, and then the planning board the planning department decides which comments are absolutely necessary or which ones they're not interested in. It kind of functions the same way as the site plan or subdivision process, where the engineering department, other than accepting road and drainage plans, doesn't actually issue approvals. We just keep plugging away to get the plans to a point where they are acceptable and they do meet town code.
I thought what Michael showed us, the language actually called for engineering department approval, but maybe I misread it.
I'll bring it up again. So
yeah, if you could, Mike, I'm on my phone. So.
Yeah, it did say approval by engineering.
So our first, let's just take a look, right? Our first one is in the engineering division. So approved by plan, yeah, so that does read, and so that could be a comment from the planning board to amend the language.
Well, there could be possible, I'm just thinking it could be a possible conflict because the engineering might look, they're putting on their engineering blinders and they might say, well, this is certainly suitable for access and it's flat and so forth. Whereas the planning board might decide to keep a portion of an old file map closed and designated those lots as sending lots. There could be a potential conflict.
Since we are a referral from the planning board dictates the layout. All we're looking at really is access and roads. So the only thing that we end up actually approving are the road and drainage plans, which are used to get to those lots. So we don't comment on number of lots or really lot layout at all. All that is pretty much dictated to us.
Okay.
The roads and the access are often, because the roads and the access in the old file map are always the controversy. I mean, that's usually the issue.
Yep.
Dennis, when I first read this, I also had a concern that sounds somewhat like engineering has kind of a veto authority or whatever in this. I don't know if there's a way to tweak that phrasing a little bit.
You could ask them to write something like without the review and comment of the engineering department.
I was going to say, you can say is shown as approved by the planning board and reviewed as a referral to engineering division, so that the approval stays with planning. The review and referral comes from engineering.
Right. If you get engineering in there, I think you're reflecting what Tom's comment and Michael's comment, are. But I think phrasing it a little differently would be very helpful.
Yeah.
What's the phrasing for site plan approval? Are we reinventing the wheel, or are we just adding old file maps to part of that process?
I'm not sure. I don't know if Claire, would you happen to know that?
There's no engineer approval for site plan.
No, but what do we say?
A referral. It has to be referred. It's a referral.
So maybe that's the same language should be here.
I don't even know if that language is in there. I haven't looked at the site
Yeah,
plan regs for years.
Can I
You
just
do
ask?
it as a matter of course, along with, Trails Advisory Board and
Michelangelo, what was the point of this again? I'm just,
So the point of this is that we currently do it, but it's not within our code.
would they review and comments before an approval?
Yes.
So then that's all it needs to say.
I just want to make sure that we don't have two agencies, that the approval relies on two agencies that may conceivably be in conflict with each other, especially, layout of lots and where the map is going to be open and what's going to be receiving sites and setting sites.
You can say review and approval with respect to road layout and drainage. Review and not approval, review and comment.
Okay, if
Yes.
that might solve the problem.
Define exactly what it is that they're doing. That's good, Christine, I think.
But again, if this is codified for site plans, shouldn't we be using the same language? And if it's not, then maybe it should be added to it as well.
I mean, I'd have to ask Claire. I don't know if it's in our code for site plan.
I don't know. I don't know either. That's why I'm raising the issue again.
There might be similar wording we can take a look at in the subdivision code. Because we're implementing a lot of new roads in 292 and they talks about a lot of engineering and bonding. Mike, I can also talk to you about what the general process is for old file maps, because we do want to ensure that we get their review and that it's codified, because these are very tricky roads sometimes because they're in a grid pattern, they're historic, and they took no account for topo or actual circumstances. So, which is why Tom and I work so closely on these road and drainage plans, and it's very time consuming. So we want to make sure that we have the review linked in the code and then hopefully can charge an appropriate fee for all that work.
Right. My question was, does codifying this generate a fee? And
I believe it does.
Yeah.
I think that's how the code is written. Yes, it
allows
would.
us to add it to our fee schedule. Currently, we do request a fee similar to subdivision map. We base it on the length of the road. So if we're asked to review a 3,000-foot road, that's what we base it off of.
Can I ask a question? Do the old file maps, when do these go to road review still before they get a building permit for a lot that's been approved by the planning board?
Yes, that's correct. At the time of when planning approves that old file map, they will, the development of that old file map, they'll put that covenant in there that the lot goes to road review. As you know, it may be some time before a lot ends up being developed for those parcels.
Right. But, with old file maps, sometimes you end up with, I guess having my experience with old file maps, you had to make compromises because you don't always get an orderly building permit application process, which allows you to say, well, you can get a lot that's remote from where the road ends, and you have to try and make access to that property without constructing an entire road or having to burden one or two properties with constructing the entire road.
George, sometimes you have one party that owns the majority of the lots, in which case we do a bona fide road and drainage plan, fully engineered, bonded. We have one now on Edge of Woods Road. Joe Gaza and Marla Schwenk are doing, and they're basically did the road and drainage plan. That's going to be built out and bonded accordingly.
Yeah, so in that case, we were asked to review the road and drainage plan for that development, which looks very similar to a subdivision, but it's an old file map. So we're still doing kind of the same amount of work. We're reviewing the plans. We do try to work around the site conditions because you can't get the same standards as you would a subdivision typically, but we try and really make these plans better than what they started out as, with because we're seeing a lot of like 20% slopes and all this other stuff, and it's not feasible for residents to have to use that as access.
Yeah, that's a very hilly area.
So how do we want to leave this and revise the words, the wording based
Just to
on?
clarify. you know,
Christine, I think your language was good.
I can work on it with Michelangelo to review and comment with respect to a specific layout. I'm trying to get the gist of this and trying to find out in this office who may have drafted this. My feeling is that they were supposed to run on 2 concurrent tracks, not to be met. I don't think they were looking at it as a referral from the planning board. I think they were thinking of it just like, I'm just reading it now more thoroughly. I think it was meant like, you're going to the planning board for all your subdivision stuff. You're also going to have to go to the engineering department to get sign off on all the particulars for the drainage or the road lay, you know, whatever it is they do. Because I know they're, yeah.
If I may jump in, that's not our intent. Our intent is to definitely be a referral from the planning board with an approval authority of the road and drainage plans. So not layout, but
we can't give you approval authority. We can give you, I mean,
They can make recommendations to the planning board.
right. You can review and comment on with respect in the engineering department with respect to the road layout and drainage.
So being that this is a town board referral, let's maybe hit some of these comments that then we can adopt those comments and I can bring that to the town board and they can take those comments into consideration and revisit the code amendment.
And I can bring up, I just found out who the attorney was that's handling it. So I can bring this up to the attorney and talk to them about what your specific concerns are, which is that we don't have a veto situation or that your approvals are in any way being hampered or infringed upon by another department. So I can just raise that. And if there's wording that we need to change to do that, then we can try and work on that.
Okay.
Okay, so then maybe our first comment is to clarify language regarding approval authority.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second comment? I mean, it seems to be the general gist is regarding this approval authority and make sure that's clear. Okay, I mean, is the board willing to adopt that then and as our comment to the town board?
Everybody, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, because this is going to the town board. We're referral to them on this. Okay, so going to have a motion to accept the amended referral. Motion by Gloria and second by someone. Robin, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed, abstention? Seven in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Now,
Robin.
Jackie, do you have time for me to sneak in with this other?
Do it quickly. It's another
Yeah,
window.
well, I think this is pretty straightforward.
Yes, it is. You sent it to us.
Could you stop sharing your screen, please?
Yeah, of course. Sorry. You want to see my face or tired of looking at the document? And I'm sorry, I didn't say hello, Tom Neely and George Mutu, that this is a new planning board and this is my first time in front of you this year. It's already almost March.
Good to see you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Same to you, Tom.
So I'm going to share my screen again, different document. So Stony Brook University is restoring and repairing the windmill on the Shinnecock campus, and they are establishing lead agency. This seems pretty straightforward, and we don't really see any issues with that. It's in kind and maintaining the appearance. So I'd recommend that we don't really have an action and we let them act as lead agency.
So there was a resolution that Janice prepared. I had emailed it to you. I can put it up, but it relinquishes lead agency to the state in this case.
I have it here as well. Okay, we can review it together if you'd like. But if you wanted to be quick, this is quick.
Big windmill day. Big windmill day.
Yeah, it's a lot of windmills. We do love them.
I know we're being quick, but can you just give a little bit more info because I didn't have the opportunity to review this one.
Okay, so the proposed action includes fabricating and installing windmill vanes destroyed by storms, restoring a damaged structure member, and complete select repairs of roofing and siding. So essentially, the state agency is repairing a historic structure, a windmill on their campus. I don't even know if I don't think we have jurisdiction Here, it's really more within their grant, they require to come to us. But being that they're making these repairs and this restoration in kind and maintaining the look and character of the structure, that's why they're recommending that it's a type 2 action, and they would take that on as lead agency.
Any comments?
Straightforward.
Okay, so motion to adopt this by Robin, second by Gloria, and all in favor?
Aye.
Abstention, 7 in favor. Okay, you've got it, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. All right, have a wonderful day.
Thank you. All right, just to let you all know, it's 10 minutes of 9. We still have 9 items on the agenda. I know we had a long work session, but maybe we can move forward. Jackie, you're next.
Sure. Give me 1 second. My screen locked. If Karen Hogue is here, she is the representative for the next item, which is the Ocean View Park, which is relating directly to 1 Hampton Avenue. Thank you. Can you all see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the draft resolution. It just summarizes the description of the overall old file map. This is the comments. So this kind of summarized our review. When we were looking at the original map, we had a question to title as to Castle Hill Court, which was being explored as a possible access option because Great Hill Road is so curvy and hilly that it wasn't conducive to additional traffic, as well as the layout of the configuration of these overlaid layers of old file map. So one of the concerns that we discussed when we were even setting the public hearing is to ensure that the owner still pays their fair share, because essentially 3 development parcels were going to be utilizing this. I'm sorry that this is in the wrong view. So this is the subject parcel in question. These 3 lots, so this was actually one large development section, these tax map parcels here. This one house is already built. This was kind of historically graded and cleared, although not to the width that we would require for road and safety standards. But this is the subject parcel. They are requesting to come in off of Castle Hill Court right here. But then we were asking to make sure that we weren't spreading an additional burden to these 2 development parcels, that they still share in the cost. So I wanted to make sure that we had that articulated. So the attorney did provide a letter here that they understood that they would contribute their 1/3 share of maintaining. So that's one of the conditions I have in here, that they contact the engineering division to see if any further improvements are needed to ensure that they pay the 1/3 share. And so I'll be able to consult with the engineering division on that after we discuss this approval. But basically, one of the concerns also, I received a few calls from, I believe, concerned neighbors in the area, that there was a concern that there was also some possible overclearing on the lot because activity had commenced with construction. So I did just receive on February 3rd a survey that showed that they are in compliance at 34.7%, where 35. They're right on the threshold, and they have not overcleared at this point.
So our action is to just approve an amendment to the access?
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Yep, so the conditions are, if you are comfortable moving forward, that 1 Hampton Avenue can utilize Castle Hill Court, but we want to make sure that they appropriately provide improvements and maintenance of the 1/3 portion. I was requesting, just to memorialize this, that a 50-foot natural buffer be considered. So I just wanted to show you, let's see here. This is the revised survey that we received. So as you can see, they have clearing restrictions, but just to ensure that, they don't use the second access point, I was requesting a 50-foot buffer right in the southern portion here. just to memorialize that this area, so it pops up on GIS too. So no one comes in with like essentially a circle driveway and over clears. Get back to the resolution. But these were the conditions. So contact the engineering division regarding the improvements in the 1/3 share, a covenant for 50-foot natural vegetation, another covenant saying that they cannot, ensuring future shared maintenance, and a legal mechanism, just asking for something. We have a letter from the owner of Castle Hill Court saying that they can utilize it, but in case we need a legal mechanism to ensure that, just want that to be reviewed by the town attorney's office, and just basic title certification, town attorney review, and recording of the appropriate legal documents with the Suffolk County Clerk's office. I don't know, is Karen?
Yes, I am here. Jackie, thank you for sending me the copy of the resolution in your report. I appreciate it. I just have one quick question. In terms of the formal permission on the access, I know we provided a letter. Is that something, you want something further than that I should talk to the town attorney about?
Yeah, I just wanted to see, because I know the owner has like a new deed, and I just wanted to see the deed and just, see how that was wording, and kind of a catch-all, like if anything else was needed, just to, make sure we can review that with the town attorney's office.
Okay, all right, so I can work with you and the town attorney on that.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Was there any other questions?
No? So you want to vote on this to accept this, Jackie?
That'd be great.
Motion by Gloria and second by Dennis, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony, you have a completeness in scheduling a public hearing. 74 Priscilla Avenue. You're muted again, Anthony.
Yep, let me just get the screen for you. So this is another one on Priscilla Avenue. I've been dealing with the applicant, it's got a bunch of properties. It's a vacant property right here. I believe it is the R15 zoning district. It used to be 2 lots. It obviously merged through common ownership. So the applicant's looking to re-subdivide it into 2 lots, which is going to require relief from the zoning board. But this is just a pre-application. So, and I just put this map together so you can sort of see, that there seems to be a mix of lots in this area. But nevertheless, we'll see how it goes. But I was going to recommend that we deem the application complete and schedule the pre-application hearing for April 14th.
April 14th?
April 7th.
Anthony?
April 14th is the first meeting in April for the planning board.
April 14th. Okay, motion? Motion to accept.
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by Tom. All in favor? Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Okay, Claire, are you here? Yes, you have the kind of completeness and set a hearing on this.
Yeah, so I have resolution and the plans. I'll show it to you. So I think everybody is familiar with Connor. This is the, first it was a site plan application, and now they're proposing a, what's essentially a re-subdivision. It's existing as 9 lots, and they're reconfiguring them into 7 lots. 1 along the zoning line, which is here. This would be a residential lot. And then these lots on the parcels. And so this is the configuration. So this was submitted back in January of 2021. It was deemed incomplete at that time. And now all the requisite information for pre-application has been submitted. And I'm recommending it be deemed complete and a public hearing be scheduled for March 24th.
Okay, I have a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by someone, George.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Thank you. And Jackie, you're back with 69 Cypress Avenue.
Yeah, this is a two-lot subdivision.
Mhm.
Two-lot subdivision in Flanders. I know we want to move along, so I am recommending that it be deemed complete. They did make the necessary changes. There was a subtle tweak that I asked for regarding the clearing, but they already made that change last week. So this would be complete and recommend a public hearing for March 24th for the pre-application.
Okay.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Okay. Anthony, you're back with scheduling
so
pre-submission conference. Okay.
Claire, can you? So we have a Bartlett Tree Service, which is North Sea Road and Sandy Hollow Road. North Sea Road, Sandy Hollow Road. It's a pre-existing non-conforming landscaping business that's CO'd. Everything's appears to be on the up and up, but obviously I'll do my research. The applicant is proposing, right now they have some chemical storage on the site, but new regulations have come into place. So they're proposing, it's called a trailer, but I believe it's a permanent structure for the storage of associated landscaping chemicals, and a second trailer, which I believe is just going to be for equipment. But it's being that it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, this would require a pre-submission conference. So that's what we're doing. We're scheduling a pre-submission conference. Here's Sandy Hollow, here's North Sea, and then all the improvements right in the middle, including the building. And so that's what they're proposing.
What date?
Residentially zoned, so and it's R20, and I'm looking for April 14th for a pre-submission.
Just to double check, they're storing chemicals in the truck body. Tree chemicals in the truck body.
What was that, Dennis? I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify that they're proposing to store tree chemicals in the truck trailer body on site.
They're calling it a trailer. I'm not really. It's not a temporary structure. Their application actually refers to it as a storage shed. Dennis, but they noted it as a trailer here. But these are going to be permanent structures.
Okay. Anything that stores, make sure we get our referrals on,
Yeah, well, this is a pre-submission conference, Dennis. So there's not a lot of referrals on this one, but obviously in a formal, we will. But I will try to gather as much information as it relates to that. So when we do the report,
so we can give them. I mean, the purpose of pre-submission is to give them direction, and if there are requirements, DEC or fire requirements, we want to get it to them early.
Hello,
Karen, are you?
Yes, hi, I'm here.
Okay.
I put in the packet, it's a very specialized storage locker. It's in the application that protects from these chemicals that they don't want to have indoors because they're redoing the inside to make it more habitable for the employees. And these are mostly organic chemicals, but it's a very secure, it's called a chemical storage locker. And it meets all the OSHA and all the compliance. So this is a national company and this is what they want to have. And they'll landscape it, but it's not the other one is just a container ship that you'd find in a container ship that they want to store equipment in. So that's what's going on. And also I'd just like to add, in talking with the owner, they're willing to, they don't need the access to Sandy Hollow Road. So, it's a very busy, that's where everybody's coming off County Road 39. And so they would, propose to block that off. But we didn't have time to, get the survey updated. The surveyors are all kind of backed up. So
that's okay, Karen. I heard you loud and clear.
Okay, is that something that you guys would be interested in? I mean, I think it makes it safer, and they would landscape it, and because they don't really use it, and it's not. This has been operating since the early 1960s. So. And it's tree. It's a national company, and they they help maintain trees. So that's what's going on. And they're doing some internal repairs because now they have more women employees. And so they want to, I should have a floor plan by the time we have the hearing, just to show you that, you know, that was the reason. They're not really expanding, they're just making it safer. So
Okay.
anyhow, that's what's going on.
Karen, please give us your name for the record.
Oh, Kieran Pate Murphy, attorney for the applicant Bartlett Tree Experts, 1 Bayberry Lane, Sag Harbor, New York, 11963.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So going to have a motion to schedule a pre-submission conference for April 14 by
Motion.
Glorian, second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kieran.
Thank you. Bye.
And then I have
JGF?
the next one,
An extension?
JGF. This is the property, Old Country Road in Eastport. We did a pre-application on this one for a 3-lot subdivision. I believe their yield might have been 4, but they're doing 3 lots, probably because of health department issues with a common driveway. The pre-app was done August 13th of 2020. So it expired August 13th of 2021. And this would just be the 1-year typical extension, which will make it valid until August 13th, 2022.
August 13th, 2023?
2022, just this upcoming summer, yep.
Oh, okay. Motion
Motion.
by Glorian, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Claire, extension, Atlantic Golf Club.
Yeah, I think Mr. Bruin's on if you have any questions, but I think in this case, they're awaiting the preparation for their plans. This is the first extension. This would be until June of this year for 90 days.
Okay, 90 days, 2022, June. Motion?
Motion.
By Robin, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
And then I have Southampton Country Day Camp. So 2 years ago, you approved the site plan. And it's coming up for 2 years. And they've asked for an extension. Typically, you would grant 2 years if they haven't commenced some of the work on the project. I know some of the work has commenced. I don't have any idea like how far they are or anything like that. I kind of asked the applicant today, so I don't think he has a ready answer. But I'm not quite sure if you want to give the full 2 years in this case, or you want to give a shorter lease and have some update on how they are with the use being established and the work and mitigation that you had with the site plan. So
It would be very helpful to get an update on what's been done. So just 1 year?
it's up to you. The applicant's here, so if you have any questions for him, or if you're going to tell him it's 1 year and if he's acceptable to him.
So good afternoon, board members. Wayne Bruin on behalf of the applicant. Since the approval, there have been certain permits obtained. The health department didn't give final approval until March of 2021. So work couldn't actually commence. I don't know exactly at this moment what construction, if any, has taken place, but there have been certain permits issued. And our client is trying to also get things lined up so that full construction on all items will commence in September at this point. So I think putting this off for a year may not be enough time.
So they're operating their camp without completing the site plan. Is that correct?
Well, they're operating the camp as they have historically. So they haven't completed all the improvements to do everything pursuant to the approved changes. So all that construction will take place. Like I said, most of it is all planned for September at this point.
Any comments by anybody? I mean, it would certainly be helpful to get an update on this.
I will, everybody
Yeah,
was
I know.
on vacation this week, school
Okay.
holiday, so I
Can
couldn't
we-
get any update.
Can we schedule that, Claire? Have an update?
Sure. Do you want to give an extension and then just, I can put this on in a month and get an update if you'd like.
Would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The board agree?
Mhm.
Do you want to give a year extension or you just want to give a certain time frame and then have the update?
I would say a year. Let's do a
Okay.
year until we find out where we are. We can always extend it again.
Sure. So we'll give it a year. So this would be, March 12th, 2023. And then I will pencil it in for the next available meeting for an update with Wayne and I'll coordinate that.
Okay, great.
I'll get you an update.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
Motion
you.
by Dennis, second by George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Claire, you have another extension for
Thank
GTB
you.
State Group. Thank you, Wayne.
I got GTB. This is the first extension that was also approved in December, and this would be till June 9th, 2022.
June 9th, 2022. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. We've done that. There are no signed plans, right, Gloria? Nothing?
Correct.
I don't have anything down.
We're all good.
Okay, so Christine will let us know whether or not we have to go back March 10th live or not. Of course,
I will.
we're all hoping that we can stay Zoom for a while, right? I
Yeah.
think that's sort of the general.
Jackie, I'm out the 10th, just so.
You're out the 10th and Gloria's out the 10th.
I'm out the 10th too.
Is everybody else in? George, you're here, Robin, Tom, Craig, Jackie, so we have a quorum. So, maybe we don't go back. And do we have that vote? Christine? Do we have
Make
that?
a call.
Do we have that opportunity? I mean, we don't have a full board and,
You want to adjourn the meeting, you're saying?
no.
You want to keep it on
No,
Zoom?
we want to, yeah, I mean,
You can call the town board liaison and see what the thoughts are at this point. Or I
Who
can
is
do that
that?
for you. It's up to you.
can you do that for us?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, you're persuasive.
Um,
So that would mean that we would, if the elevators are operating, I mean, I don't know what's going on over there. That we would meet live then on the March 24th meeting.
mhm.
So we'll keep you in the loop. But on the 10th, Gloria's out, Dennis is out, and Claire is out. Okay.
We're not going to be together.
Sure you're not.
What? You're not going to the Caribbean?
Oh, I'm going to Virginia.
All right, guys, thank you. A motion to adjourn by
Motion.
Robin, second by Dennis, all in favor.
Right.
Opposed, abstentions. We are adjourned until
Good
March.
night,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Night.
you all.
Thanks, Christine.